Welcome to the 8th African History Month Conference. The theme today is Honoring the History Makers, celebrating African women's achievements throughout history. Today, I'd like to thank our founder and president, Daniel Wambonu, who has made this all possible, and also to our sponsors, Tunacheki TV, YouTube channel, and Council for Ethiopian Diaspora Action, and SRC Real Estate, who have been faithfully covering our event this month and streaming live to the world. And thank you to our viewers watching via Facebook and YouTube, LinkedIn, and all the other platforms. Welcome to this historic event. Today, it's all women, so there's a lot of power in the house today. So sit back and enjoy the program we have for you. The outline of today's program is we have 8 speakers who will each speak for 20 minutes or less, and there will be 3 segments. The first segment will be the three speakers, and then there'll be a short break, and then the second segment will be the keynote speaker, followed by 4 more speakers. And then we'll have another break and a Q&A at the end where viewers can ask questions and ask for more information if they need it. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce our first speaker, who is Nikita Reese. Nikita is, I'm so sorry. I have my co-host sitting right next to me and I didn't even introduce you. Debbie. Okay. Debbie is my co-host today, and we'll both be presenting our speakers for the program. So I'm going to introduce the first one, and you'll hear from Debbie just a little bit later. So our first speaker is Nikita Reese, and Nikita is part of that diaspora of students from the West Indies who, having attained their first degree at the leading university in the Caribbean region, the University of the West Indies, has continued further afield to deepen that academia to the doctoral level. She holds a baccalaureate in law and politics. Her master's studies focused on human rights and peace, and is now studying her doctorate in international development in Europe. Her achievements to date are truly commendable, and they confirm her unwavering commitment to human rights, equality, and justice. Her current work focuses on gender equality systems. She is a young woman greatly to be admired because of her determination, her generous spirit, her principles and commitment to the peoples of the world. And the Shero she will be speaking about today is the Caribbean Iron Lady, Eugenia Charles. So I'd like to say welcome, Nikita.
Welcome,
and thank
Nikita.
You for joining us today.
Yes, thank you. First, I must extend a special thanks to the African History Month for organizing this historical conference on African women's contribution. I think it is extremely important and timely. So today I'm going to be speaking to you about Eugenia Charles. She was the first woman prime minister in the Caribbean region. And she was elected in 1980 and served until 1995. And to date, she's actually the longest serving prime minister in that country. And while some might actually question her political style, I believe, as will others, that her legacy lives on as one of the most fearless women leaders, and some might even say globally. And her actions were revered and lauded to the degree that it earned her the title of the Caribbean's Iron Lady. I will say that as with all leaders who are resolute, and particularly so when it is a woman, it is in what is traditionally a man's public domain, her detractors casted aspersions on her political actions and described her as a ruthless leader. But today, I would like to focus on the accolades. And like with the accolades that Mark Antony gave to Julius Caesar, I come to give honor to her superlative achievements and her parliamentary prowess. And I will seek to highlight what was required for her to govern Dominica for 15 years. And in so doing, she also warded off 2 attempted coups during her tenure as Prime Minister. So let's look a little bit at her background and what shaped her thinking. So Dame Eugenia was a descendant of free Black people who owned a small plot of land in Dominica. Her mother and father, they were prominent figures in society. Her mother, Josephine Charles, was actually an entrepreneur, and she focused in transport, insurance, and she also had her own financial, she focused on finances, and she started her own bakery. And her father actually founded the Penny Cooperative Bank for peasants, and he became the first mayor of Dominica's capital. And ultimately, um, her family, they were able to rise up the social ladder, and this created opportunities for them that would not have been offered to other or Dominican citizens. So Dame Eugenia's father, he was able to become a member of parliament, which ironically, these humble beginnings of her parents were definitely reframed and used as political gimmickry to smear her parliamentary achievements. When her opponents actually refer to her as a wealthy individual and privileged, and her middle class status is actually what got her position in politics. So that was actually used to fuel negative stereotypes about Dame Eugenia. But nevertheless, Dame Eugenia went on to study law at the University of Toronto, and this was 1942 to 1946. And she was called to the bar in the United Kingdom in 1947. She continued with her postgraduate degree at the London School of Economics in 1949, and she actually became the first woman lawyer in Dominica and opened legal practices in Dominica and in Barbados. So I think it is reasonable for us to say that her education, and more specifically her disciplines of law and economics, it shaped and majorly complexioned her political path into parliament. In 1968, Dame Eugenia became formally involved in politics despite major criticism and dissent from the leading political party at the time, the Dominica Labour Party, or the DLP. It is significant to mention that the patriarchy of the day attempted to censor criticism and dissent by actually implementing an act through Parliament called the Seditions and Undesirable Publications Act, which in Caribbean jargon would be the shut your mouth bill. So the leading party, they were so afraid of this strong woman figure coming into what was traditionally a man's domain. And in their attempt to quell her rise per se, they implemented an act. So we will go on and examine what Dame Eugenia Charles had to do to charter her own political path. And she overcame this majorly, even though she did have a lot of limitations, but she successfully co-founded the Dominican Freedom Party. And it must be highlighted. So she co-founded this party in 1978. And it must be highlighted that under her tenure as Prime Minister in 1980, she was able to secure independence from Britain that same year. So in the 1918 elections, Dame Eugenia Charles and her opposition Freedom Party, they won the elections with a total of 17 out of the 21 seats. So this is incredibly remarkable. She almost swept the parliament. I would like at this point just to deviate from what might seem to a few of you to be a fairy tale and they lived happily ever after story. So she was able then to create this party and everything was, as it were, a fairy book ending. No, Dame Eugenia actually, during her first years as prime ministers, it was extremely challenging. For some of you who are not familiar with the Caribbean context, when Dame Eugenia entered Parliament, this was in the aftermath of Hurricane David, which severely destroyed the country's infrastructure and crippled the economy. So she came in at a time where Roseau, which is the main capital in Dominica, they experienced 78% damage to all of the dwellings in the capital. 19 primary schools were completely destroyed. 60,000 people were displaced from their homes, and this resulted in over $100 million to repair. And why this is very significant to understand these challenges, especially when she just came into power, is that for a country that had a budget of $12 million, imagine now being saddled with hurricane damage in excess of $26 million and a balance of payment of 10 years in default. Dame Eugenia would have felt immense social, economic, and political pressures. And now, adding to this combination of a major natural disaster and its economic fallout, Dame Eugenia also faced two attempted coups during her 15-year tenure. The first coup was codenamed Operation Red Dog. It has a very strange name. And for those of you that are interested, I do encourage you to read up on it. And this was led by an American and Canadian white supremacist with the objective of returning another person called Patrick John into power. The second coup was led by Frederick Newton, and he was actually the chief of Dominica's military forces. But both coups failed. And so while Dame Eugenia rebuilt the island's governmental structures, post the hurricane, there were challenges within her country's military. When a check of when a check was done on the weaponry in the Dominican Defense Force, the weapons counts did not reconcile with official records, so Dame Eugenia had to disband that defense force. And as part of her national development plan, Dame Eugenia introduced several privatization and structural adjustment policies as a means to diversify Dominica's mono economy. And a snapshot of the Dame's particular challenges can be summed up as follows. So we don't have time to go into all of the details, but we can look at the main challenges she would have faced at that time. Large public debts, inadequate government revenues, monocropism, lack of a diversified entrepreneur class, two devastating hurricanes, and two coups. So now my observation is that her developmental approach was a purpose policy that was majorly based on austerity measures and structural adjustment programming. For example, her introduction of granting Dominican citizenship to foreigners in return for foreign exchange payments, her strict enforcement of tax payments by businesses which previously did not pay taxes, and her admonishment of, if I pay my taxes, then you must pay yours. Her cancellation of all overseas trips for governmental employees with the memorable words, stay home and do your work or do their work. It is to Dame Eugenia's credit that by 1983, she had succeeded in lowering the inflation rate from 30% to less than 5%. And actually, in fact, it bears mention that Dame Eugenia created a budget surplus where a deficit of several million of dollars besieged the Dominican economy prior to her taking office. So some might very well say that she followed the recommendations of the World Bank, but I put it to you as listeners. what we are looking at here is not necessarily her executive power at play, where for many of you would know that is carrying out and enforcing the law, but her legislative power, which dealt with her creating laws and policies for the peace and development of her country. Colleagues and listeners and my audience, wherever you are across the world, I want to put this to you. This goes beyond the norm of what was business as usual for Dominica at that time. Here you have a woman who comes on the political scene and operationalizes how to keep spending at a minimum, and in so doing, it immortalizes her words, "We should give the people not luxury, but a little comfort." And she also believed that Dominica needed to be self-reliant, having a sustainable model. And if not only to reinforce the nature and contribution of this female leader, I must quote what she told New York Times. People realize that there's not much money, but what there is spent on assisting them. We have given this government credibility. And now, just as a comedic aside, just to show her active challenge of dominant patriarchal rules, she actually protested the formal dress codes of the assembly, and she introduced she took a brave stance, and she wore her judicial robe, and underneath her robe she had on a green bathing suit. So so it is interesting to see that across the board she had to create this vision that she saw for Dominica's development, and she still faced a lot of patriarchal backlash. And let us back a little bit. Let's go back a little bit and examine the colonies where the British have administered these monocrop economies, so we can get an understanding of the challenge that she had in diversification of the Dominica's economy, of Dominica's economy. So it's interesting to note that in places like Asia and Africa, where the British did have colonies, for the most part, they were able to restructure and diversify their economy. While the pattern of British ex-colonies in the Caribbean, some will argue that it still suffers from monocropism. So that is the inability to diversify the economy and focus on other crops. So at that time, we were focusing on sugar. That was our main export. So she had a major task on her hand to stimulate the economy, create different jobs in different sectors. Dame Eugenia Charles was an advocate for regional integration of the Caribbean region, and she is credited to say, and I quote, "I am of the firm opinion that the Caribbean must continue to exist, but it must exist for the purpose of improving the quality of life of all of our people. If it does not succeed in doing this, then we must abandon it." And now we are going to sum up a little bit and let us move to the particular changes that she implemented within Dominica's infrastructure. So the Charles administration, she reconstructed the roads, rebuilt the banana and lime sectors, and this was all done through financial support by the Caribbean Basin Initiative at that time, which was headed by the US government. Which brings us to Grenada in 1983. A quick synopsis regarding Grenada, which is just 368 kilometers away from Dominica's shores, is that we see the arrest and the execution of the Prime Minister of Morris Bishop. Dame Eugenia was at that time the chairperson for the Organization of the Eastern Caribbean States. In a communique to Barbados, Jamaica, and United States, she appealed to these countries for help. Not that I am rewriting history, but maybe in reviewing this incident, here we have a chairperson and a woman prime minister who herself has undergone 2 coups and is now witnessing a 3rd coup unfolding in front of her eyes. Her role in this event, in this significant event, nicknamed her Mambo Charles, and she also gained the nickname the Caribbean, the Iron Lady of the Caribbean. So what lessons can we learn from Eugenia Charles for women in leadership positions today, in and across the Caribbean and in and across Africa? I think people do not really understand the Herculean task women face when becoming a parliamentarian. And yes, as well in other leadership positions, when women are trying to attain other leadership positions that are traditionally male dominated. But for the purpose of this presentation, we're going to focus on women's task of becoming a parliamentarian. So learning from the legacy of Dame Eugenia Charles, let's examine the road into and well in Parliament. In order to enter Parliament, you have to be elected by the party, where men are the gatekeepers. Before this, women must be placed on the ballot, and in so doing, be subjugated to the verbal scoring administered by both men and women. So we can see that it is not an automatic ascendancy for women. So even with the fact that there are more women than men in societies, there's still no solidarity in women voting for women. One would figure that even in the absence of quotas, for example, in the Caribbean region, with the exception of Guyana, the English-speaking Caribbean has not implemented quotas, which would be this 30% threshold for, or 30% threshold for women to enter into parliament. That the percentage in the female population could be leveraged for women, but in practice this is not the case. So the question that we are invited to ask ourselves is, how can a woman in a political party get grassroots support like Eugenia Charles did to gain her seat? And my research, my area of specialty, I focus on ways on how we can capture data and apply that data so that we can enable participatory democracy where we have both women and men in the legislative sphere, and also to foster women's, so my data also focuses on fostering women's political participation in parliament so that we can have more democratic and just political structures. And also I go a bit further on how do we create an effective leader, one that gives voices to our communities. So I also like to look at giving accountability and transparency for our policies within our communities. And I would like to end now with us, rather than looking forward than looking backward, let us look forward. Let's look on the way ahead. It is up to all of us to ensure that gender equality, that this journey of gender equality is successful. Gender equality is where we value both females and male attributes equally so that they can participate in parliament to make laws for the peace and the betterment of our Caribbean societies. And I do thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I put it over to the moderators. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nikita. That was wonderful to hear and really inspiring. And I'm quite happy to receive that information, especially it's about Dominica, a fellow patois speaking country. So it was really interesting and, you know, well done. Thank you. Really insightful. And yeah, I learned a lot today, a lot of things I didn't actually know. So yeah, thank you again. Thank you for your time. And we'll speak to you a bit later on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd now like to introduce to you our next speaker. Her name is Edwina Jenny Taylor Flathen. She is the CEO of 3 organizations. Edwina Taylor Flathen has a background in business administration in the Netherlands. After years of working in the corporate world, she transitioned to the humanitarian sector in Liberia. There she served as the program manager for ZOA, a Dutch non-profit organization, after which she became the chairperson of the Christian Association for Regional Development, CARD, playing a vital role in propagating quality education. She and her team organized fundraising events in Europe where proceeds were used to battle Ebola. She has contributed immensely to the energy sector, convincing Waka Waka solar lamp producers to donate solar lamps for Liberia and Sierra Leone, pioneering the Norwegian International Development Company to provide affordable, renewable energy in Africa. Edwina has served as country representative for Liberia via the Liberian Gateway Incorporated. She is also the founder of Splash of Africa, a platform where African-made products are sold, and the co-founder of Seeding Africa, a charitable organization founded by Africans and Africans in diaspora. Well-meaning Pan-Africanists whose sole aim to make Africa self-reliant on food production. They intend to achieve this by supplying organic seeds to local farming communities, thereby feeding our future. I would like to welcome Edwina Jenny Taylor Flathen to the panel.
Hi. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for having me. I would first like for us all to take a moment of silence in recognition of all women globally, all Black women who have come before us and who are currently here, who suffer and who will go through daily challenges faced as being a woman, being a Black woman. Now, I first came prepared. I was going to talk about our queens of Africa in past history, those who came and created a legacy for us, like, for example, Queen Amina and Queen of Asentewa, etc. And I'm going to talk about them, but I'm also going to talk about global Black women after that, because at the end of the day, not only do we share our DNA from these awesome queens that came before us and changed the future of their communities and everything, but we are also living in their legacy. I will pick just a few queens to talk about briefly. Queen Amina of Zyria, for example, she reigned between 1576 and 1610. She was commonly known as the warrior queen, fierce, and she expanded the territory of the Hausa people of North Africa to the largest borders in history. The reign of Amina occurred at a time when the city-state of Zazua was situated at the crossroad of 3 major trade corridors of Northern Africa. So what she did by her action actually created a link in the Sahara region with where the isolated markets of the southern forest lands and Western Sudan could be opened. Her primary aim was not to conquer adjacent territories, but to compel local leaders to recognize vassal status, also allowing merchants from all Hausa states to travel freely. Now, this is a queen that I admire a lot, and she's a queen that I believe that most of us or all of us carry her DNA. The next queen that is admired by me as well, and some of you might know of her, it's Queen Ya Asantewa of the Asante Kingdom in Ghana. She ruled between 1840 and 1921, and she was also the queen mother of Ejisu. She was fierce. Her resistance against the British colonialists plays a significant part in Ghana's history, and one that we should not forget. The Ashanti paramount king was abducted by the British when they invaded and subjugated Ghana. But when the chiefs gathered to discuss the best course of action, they were afraid and sort of like reluctant to challenge the British, but not our queen, Ya Asantewa. She was so angry at their cowardice and the frailty that she said, I, and the women will take action. And she got all her female colleagues and fought against the British. And they were determined to fight until the last of them is killed in battle. Now that is a strong woman. That is a strong woman. That would explain why Ghana has, up till today, has strong women in power and strong women in leadership. The next one I'd like to talk about is Mbande Nzinga. She reigned between 1583 and 1663. She was the sister and advisor of the king of Angola, which is now Angola. They were colonized by the Portuguese, for those who don't know that. She became queen when her brother committed suicide after being confronted by Portuguese demands for slave trade concessions in 1624. She promoted women to all government posts, including her own two sisters. When the Portuguese broke a peace treaty, she led her largely female army against them that inflicted terrible casualties. But in an effort to establish a powerful enough confederation to push the Portuguese out of Africa, her armies eventually captured neighborhood kingdoms. And in 1635, she accepted a truce and signed a peace treaty. She ruled her people until she was 81 years old. If you just bear with me, I have 2 or 3 more queens to talk about. But the reason why one of the reasons I decided to choose talking about our queens from the past is because in order to move forward in life, we must understand our past. Because our past is a part of our present and it leads to our future. So that's why our past is very important. Now I'm going to move back to Queen Kandake. She was the Empress of Ethiopia. She was a queen of ancient African kingdom of Kush. Some of you have heard of Kush. Well, she was a queen of ancient kingdom of Kush, and she was best known for protecting her kingdom against the Roman Empire. Amarenas was also she was probably born between 60 and 50 BC. It's not exactly sure which year exactly she was born, which period. But she was the second of the 8 Kandakas. Kandaka or Candace means great woman in that era, and which is also like the equivalent of a queen mother as we have today. We all know Queen Nefertiti, so I'm going to skip Queen Nefertiti. I'll go to Queen Ravillona of Madagascar. She was born around 1788 to 1861, and she ruled that island with a dictatorial ruthlessness from 1828 until she died. She is remembered as one of the few African leaders who managed to hold foreign forces at bay during a time when colonial conquest enslaved most of Africa. So she's another one as well who we have our strength and our prowess as African women to thank for. Queen Morima of Ife Kingdom of Nigeria was a courageous queen who lived in the 12th century and is fabled to have contributed to the deliverance of the Yoruba tribe from oppression. In ancient Yoruba land at that time, the people of Al-Ila Ifa were enslaved by a neighboring tribe called the Igbo, forest people, so to speak. These Igbo were considered to be as powerful as demigods because they conducted regular raids on the people of Ifa. She went to the place that was raided frequently and allowed herself to be captured. Now that reminds me of someone else who did that, someone in history. Eventually, her beauty attracted the Igbo ruler, who made her his anointed queen. She won the trust and affection of the king and people in Igbo, and learned their secrets, and later shared it with the Yorubas, which in turn helped them to defeat the Igbos. So, I mean, the list goes on and on and on of famous queens that ancient queens that Africa can boast of having, who played some major role in forming our characters, our DNA, and everything. So we should never forget them. We should never forget them. Now, having spoken about them, we should always remember to give them that honor because we share the DNA, as I said earlier. But having spoken about them, there is one queen. When I say one queen, I mean collective queen, one body, one queen, as in all melanated women, all women of African descent, globally, all into one. To me, that is one queen. This one queen, let's call her the Black woman, the Eve, let's call her that. This one queen, besides giving birth to humanity, besides being the starter of life, she is the most hated, the most abused, the most manipulated, the most vilified human being on this planet. Yet, with all of that, she is the most loving, the strongest, the one that gives life, the one that nurtures, the most forgiving, the one that keeps the family together, the one that makes sure the kids have their food, the one that makes sure that the husband comes home to a good home, the one that stands up for her people, the one that is keeping the African race strong despite everything that she encounters. I don't know about you guys, but to me, that lady, that particular lady that I just spoke about, that queen, for me, she is the queen that we all need to remember daily. She is the queen that we all need to embody and respect and honor. She is the queen that we all need to realize that without her, we would not be here. And one thing that we all need to realize as well is that the only way, I may be wrong, but that's my opinion, the only way this world can find peace and harmony is when all women of African descent globally form together a link of love and unity. I understand how impossible, how can that be done? Love, if you can put every one of us love out there together for each other, it will link itself in the universe. And that link of love will surround the earth and it will heal the earth. So my last words, I'm not a person who talks a lot and I don't talk long. But what I can tell you is, remember your history. Remember and honor your ancestors. Remember who you are now. Love, honor, and respect every single Black woman in your family or in your life. It need to be your younger sister, your younger auntie, your mother, your grandmother. Give them that honor because life comes from them. I wish you all well. We are together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Edwina. Thank you for your powerful words.
You're welcome.
And your reminder that we must love each other. But I have to commend you for coming on today. You are indeed yourself a very powerful woman. We heard of your family bereavement and we weren't expecting you to come. So the fact that you're here with us is commendable. And I thank you for not letting us down, letting the side down. You're just a powerful woman. And we appreciate you so much for taking the time out at this time. So I wish you and your family all the best, and we do send our deepest condolences to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bless you. Thank you so much.
Okay, bless you too. Okay.
Okay. So we now move on to our next speaker, who is, now, you know what? I'm not even going to say this because I don't want to get this amazing name wrong. So I'm going to bring the speaker on in a minute so that she can say her name. Actually, I'm going to bring her on right now. Where is she?
Okay.
Can
Hello.
you please pronounce your beautiful name for everyone, please?
Okay. Eberechi Mweze.
Eberechi Nweze.
Mweze, yes.
Nweze. Okay, let me
Thank
introduce you now. Eberechi Nweze. She runs a culinary entrepreneurial organization known as Nella Cuisine in Lagos. Nella Cuisine is a catering brand that provides innovative and excellent services in catering, decorations, and events. She is a leader by nature, attitude, disposition, and character, and she has the capacity to influence others to achieve a common goal. She is a team player blessed with great social and interpersonal skills, and she is a lover of languages and culture. She graduated from Olabisi Onabanjo University with bachelor's degrees, honors in history and diplomatic studies in 2018. She also earned the award of 2017 to 2018 Best Graduating Student History and Diplomatic Studies. She is presently awaiting admission for master's degree in history and strategic studies, and she is a lover of African history and culture and has a core interest in the development of the African continent. She volunteered in Culture and Tourism Group, National Youth Service Corps, NYSC, Kwara. She led a community development project where whiteboards were donated to a school in Ilorin, Nigeria. Through the above community development services and other platforms, she has imparted lives. She looks forward to doing more. When I tell you we're in the presence of greatness, now you know. I present to you none other than Noisy Eberechi, correct?
Okay.
Eberechi Noisy.
Yes.
And she is going to speak about real queens that ruled nations. Thank you so much, and over to you, my sister.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Okay, I'll be sharing my screen briefly. I've prepared a slide for this. Okay. 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 So I'll be sharing my screen in honor of history makers celebrating African women achievement throughout history. I'll be speaking briefly on Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, African endowments, women warriors, Nzebi Mati, and Bartholomew Alemu. Okay, quickly I'll go to Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala is a Nigerian-American economist and international expert with over 30 years of experience. She is presently the Director General, that's the DG of the World Trade Organization, which happens to be the only international organization that manages the global trade relations. Okay, she's the first female and the first African to hold the position of the DG of WTO. She presently serves as Nigeria's finance minister. She previously served as Nigeria's finance minister from 2003 to 2006, and the second tenure was from 2011, that's 2011 to 2015, and was briefly a foreign minister. Okay, she's also the first. She's also the first woman to hold the position. Her great achievements during her first tenure led to her reappointment in 2011. Okay, 2011. During her tenure as the finance minister of Nigeria, she led a negotiation team with the Paris Club that led to the wiping out of 30 billion US dollars of Nigeria's debt, including an outright cancellation of 18 billion US dollars. Yes, 18 billion US dollars. And during her tenure, during her first tenure as the Finance Minister of Nigeria. She also introduced publishing of state monthly financial allocation from the federal government of Nigeria in newspaper. This particular innovation of ours, this particular achievement of ours, brought about transparency in Nigerian government. Brought about transparency in the Nigerian government, and she shared the board of Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, in from 2016 to 2020, and 2014 to 2020. She also shared the board of African Risk Capacity. Okay, continue with her. She was also a co-chair of the Global Commission on the Economic Climate, and in terms of our educational experience, she holds a bachelor degree in economics from Harvard University and a PhD in regional economics and development from Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Okay, and she also has over a dozen of honors of honorary degrees received from Yale University, Brown University, Trinity University, and a whole lot of others. In spite of all these achievements, in all of these achievements, she is a true African, a true Nigerian in addressing, in her mode of conduct, in everything she does. Even in a picture where you could see how she is dressed like a typical African. So quickly, I'll be going to the Dahomey women warriors. The Dahomey women warriors. Okay, the Dahomey women warriors are also called the Amazons of Dahomey, and then the benefits of Dahomey. Okay, they were named Amazons of Dahomey, or the Dahomey Amazons, after the ruthless warriors of Greek mythology by the European who visited the kingdom in the 19th century. Okay, Dahomey is the West African. Dahomey is a West African. Dahomey was a West African empire, and it is located in present-day Republic of Benin, the southern part of the country. The women became the official soldiers of Dahomey during the region of Gezo during the reign of Gezo in 1818 and from 1818 to 1853. The appointment as the official soldiers was partly because of scarcity of manpower during the slave trade, because during the time when they were appointed as the official soldiers of the Dahomey Empire, it was during the slave trade and there was scarcity of manpower. But aside that, these women were fearless. They were fearless, and they freed Dahomey from the humiliation of paying tribute to Oyo Empire. They freed Dahomey from the tribulation of paying tribute to Oyo Empire. At a point, the kingdom was annexed by the Oyo Empire, but through their fearlessness in contending with their counterparts, they were able to free Dahomey from paying the tributes. The tributes. Okay, when they are not in combat, they served as royal guards. When they're not in combat, they serve as royal guards. You could imagine having women securing men. I tell you, African women are strong and fearless and great people who could withstand whatsoever. The women were known for their fearless resistance of European forces. At a point in time, we had more of the European forces coming to Africa, and during the time was when colonialism in Africa had its roots, and they fearlessly fought these Europeans, and it was part of the reason why the Europeans who visited Dahomey Kingdom in the 19th century named them the Amazon women. Yes, and in one of their conflicts with European colonizers, only 17 of over 400 returned home alive. These women fought fearlessly. They fought like it was a fight of I die here or my people are not enslaved. So you could imagine how much of impact they had on the history of Dahomey, which we could link to the history of the present Republic of Benin. Okay, and there are several arguments as to their rise to becoming fearless warriors. However, their achievements cannot but be talked about. Their achievements cannot but be talked about. In some cases, the arguments that they were first human hunters and the likes, but all of this is just to undermine or to just paint a bad picture of the African women, a bad picture of these women warriors. Yes, of these women warriors. But we cannot but talk about their achievements. They did a whole lot for Dahomey at the time, and they did a whole lot and remarkable things in African history. And during the time vis-a-vis the male counterparts. They served vis-a-vis the male counterpart. They were equal to the male. This is to tell we African women that we are equal to the male. We are equal to the task. We are lesser fellows. We are capable. We are up to the task. So every African woman out there should feel confident and tell herself that I am capable to the task. I am not a lesser being because I'm a female. Now I want to talk about Nzambi Mati. Nzambi Mati, I love to call her Mother Earth. I pronounce the name very well. Jenge Makas. And Jenge Makas is a startup that converts plastic waste into plastic bricks. How innovative of an African woman. She's a trained engineer and schooled in biochemistry. She founded the new ways of converting plastic into sustainable materials. The bricks her company produce are made from plastics mixed with sand. Our company brews about 500 to 1,000 bricks per day, therefore recycling close to 500 kilograms of plastic waste a day. The plastic bricks are more durable, more sustainable, with less maintenance costs than those of concrete materials. We could imagine how much or how great the impact it is on Africa, because it's solving two problems at the same time. I would say it is providing employment. It is reducing waste. It is reducing waste or managing or recycling waste in Africa. We could in Africa, and immeasurable impacts to Africa. And gave her the award of the Young Champions of the Earth in year 2020. Okay, quickly I'll be going to Bethlehem Alemu. Bethlehem Alemu is the founder of Soul Rebels. She's the founder of Soul Rebels, and she is the manufacturer of a striving eco-sensitive. She's a manufacturer of a striving eco-sensitive brand that hails as Africa's answer to brands like Rebel, to brands like Nike, to brands like Adidas. And So Rebel is an African international footwear brand, because So Rebel has spread its shores between the boundaries of Africa. Okay. It is the first brand to ever emerge from a developing country, the first branch to developing countries are not just limited to Africa. There are non-African countries that are developing countries. So in the larger context, it just have its way of blowing me off. Yes, okay. The Soul Rebel is the fastest growing African footwear brand, and the world's first and only World Fair Trade Federation WFTO certified footwear company. Okay, it appears as the first African brand to become an international job creation powerhouse, solving the problem of unemployment, not just in Africa but beyond the shores of Africa. African women are so blessed, are so good. that the impact is not just limited to Africa; it's beyond the shores. That is to tell you how great this gender is. These people are. Oh God. She's Africa's most recognized female entrepreneur with outlets in the US, in Japan, in Austria, in Spain, and in Switzerland, amongst others. Now, quickly, I want to go to lessons we could learn from these women. One of the lessons we could learn from these women is reading through their background, you would see that it didn't just come at a go. They had their failures, they had their ups and downs, they had their times when it was like, oh, this is not going to work out. But the one thing about this group, about this set of women, is that they pressed on. About this set of women is that they pressed on. They didn't just put a stop, even with their first failure. If you read for people who want to know more, if you read the story of Nzambi Mati, you will find out that she said, according to her story, she said the first product, the first plastic bricks that were made were not good enough, and it took her over a period of almost 3 years to keep researching and retrying until they got a pattern about these women was go getting. Gender inequality should not be a barrier to our go getting. I keep saying that, so no woman should take the excuse of gender equality or restrictions. Yes, they have their they to some extent curtail what could be achieved, but that shouldn't make you fold your hands and sit back and say, oh, I'm not going to do anything, I'm not going to press on, I can't undo this. You should be fearless. And the way we find to explore, we should learn to explore in any sphere we find ourselves. As against the concept of African women, these are proofs that African women are beyond the walls of their husband's kitchen. You know, many people say, oh, Africa, whatever you go to school, you learn, all of it is you return back to your husband's kitchen. That's a big lie, and you shouldn't fall for such lie. Thank you for listening. So I can have my host come now.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ebrechi Nwaze, and I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Thank you so much. A very inspiring and educational presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you for awakening us to some truly African warrior women. Thank you so much. I'd now like to thank our first 3 speakers again. Thank you to our viewers watching via Facebook and YouTube, LinkedIn, and all the other platforms. Please don't forget to post your comments in the chat. Let us know what you think of all of our great Sheros we've had so far, and I hope you're being inspired today. I hope you take notes as well for the Q&A at the end of the session. I'd also like to thank our sponsors, Tunacheki TV and Council for Ethiopian Diaspora Action, And I'd also like to thank Asachi Real Estate. Thank you very much. Who have been faithfully covering our event and streaming live to the world. We're now going to have a short break, and we're going to show you a short video. Thank you.
Hello and welcome back again to Africa History Month's 8th conference. Today we are focusing on honouring the history makers, celebrating African women's achievements throughout history. And if you're only just joining us, I say welcome to all our viewers from Facebook, YouTube, and all over the world. Thank you for being with us. It's exciting to be here, and we're so happy to have you. We're going to go into our next segment, where we're going to have our keynote speaker come on, and she is none other than Aya Fubara Nelly, Esquire, and today's theme is Honoring the Call. Welcome, Aya. Thank you for joining us today. Can you say that again? Can't hear you. Try again. Have you unmuted? Let's try again. No, it's not. It doesn't appear to be working. Okay, so we have a technical issue at the moment. I just want to say, while Aya is trying to fix the issue, I'd just like to say we've been having a great conference today. We've heard some very, very powerful speakers. Of course, it's women. You can't expect any less, you know. We're powerful, and we're all in the house together today having a good time. Okay, so let me see. We're still waiting to see if Aya can come through. Let's have a look and see what's happening. Let's try again. Whoops. Try again, Aya. No, we can't hear you now. There seems to be a delay. Try again. No. think at this point, since we're having technical difficulties, we'll move to our next speaker and give you time to fix the issue. Aya, if that's okay. Sayambua, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Are you ready, sis? That's great. Okay,
Yes.
let me introduce you then. All right. So our next speaker then is Sayambua Akibu, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Sayambua is a Kenyan and she is a sports manager by profession for Dominus Sports Network Africa, Kenya and Uganda. Her passion is sports, football to be exact, and building football in Africa and making it so lucrative that going abroad is but an option for all our players. She also has a special passion for girls in football, and that's why she founded the Africa Women in Football chapter, a branch of the Dominus Sports Network Africa that solely supports and builds girls and women to thrive in football, this beautiful game we are extremely passionate about. She looks forward to being part of the change that makes football great in Africa and looks forward to a time when we train our sportswomen and men to play for Africa and have the best football infrastructure in the world. She also looks forward to the day Africa gets its own Premier League championship. That's wonderful. So her Shero topic today, Wangari Matai. Is that correct? Wangari
Yes.
Matai?
Madai. Yes.
Okay. Welcome, Sayumba. Over to you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. I'll also do a presentation.
Okay.
All right. Just a second. Can we see it? Okay. Trying to look for my presentation. I did.
Yes, we can see you now. We can see you. We can see you.
I'm trying to access it.
Take your time. Don't worry. Just take your time. Just take your time.
Just give me a second. Oh, what? 2 seconds ago. Here we go.
Sayambua. Sorry to cut in.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
When you put it on
Full screen.
the PowerPoint presentation, it doesn't move forwards when it's in this format for some reason. So if you're going to show the slides, you're going to have to click on them one by one, unless you start the PowerPoint before we share your screen. So let's try that. I'm going to remove you, then you start the PowerPoint, then I'll put you back on. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Okay. Okay, so start it now, and then I'll add it to the stream.
All right, done. Does it show now?
No. Okay. Remove it again.
Removing it again?
Remove it completely and then add it back. Remove it completely, start the presentation, and then add it back. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I start it again.
Yeah, start the presentation first, then add it to the stream.
Okay.
So, then share it, yeah.
Okay. Can I start it now? Can full screen work?
You should start it before you actually share it. Start the presentation before you share it. So remove it from the share. And start it now, and then share it.
Ma'am, I'm on.
Okay, now share the screen.
The only problem is if I do that, then I can't see.
You can't see. Okay. Then the issue is you're going to have to just go through the slides one by one without it being a show. That's all.
Yeah.
That's what you're going to have to do. So sorry. Okay.
It's okay.
Okay. Let's see your slides, and I'll add you to the stream. No problem.
All right.
Okay.
The extraordinary Nobel laureate Wangari Madai, celebrating the life of the first African woman to receive the Nobel Peace Prize.
We are constantly being bombarded by problems that we face, and sometimes we can get completely overwhelmed. The story of the hummingbird is about this huge forest being consumed by a fire. All the animals in the forest come out and they are transfixed as they watch the forest burning, and they feel very overwhelmed, very powerless, except this little hummingbird. It says, I'm going to do something about the fire. So it flies to the nearest stream, takes a drop of water, and puts it on the fire, and goes up and down, up and down, up and down, as fast as it can. In the meantime, all the other animals, much bigger animals, like the elephant with a big trunk, could bring much more water. They are standing there helpless, and they are saying to the hummingbird, what do you think you can do? You're too little. This fire is too big. Your wings are too little. And your beak so small. You can only bring a small drop of water at a time. But as they continue to discourage it, it turns to them without wasting any time and tells them, I am doing the best I can. And that to me is what all of us should do. We should always feel like a hummingbird. I may feel insignificant, but I certainly don't want to be like the animals watching as the planet goes down the drain. I will be a hummingbird. I will do the best I can.
The late Nobel laureate Wangari Madai, a Kenyan social, environmental, and political activist. Professor Wangari Madai was born 1st April 1940 in Nyeri District, Central Kenya, of a family of simple means belonging to the Kikuyu ethnic group, part of the Central Bantu-speaking community. She was, however, privileged to live in a part of the country of breathtaking beauty, close to Mount Kirinyaga, famously known as Mount Kenya, the Creator's House, and to the Aberdare Ranges and the largest forest and water reservoir of the country. As she beautifully writes, the experience of her youth shaped her love for the land. She obtained a degree in biological science from Mount Scholastica College in Atkinson, Kansas in 1964, a Master of Science degree from the University of Wittenberg in 1966, and pursued doctorate studies in Germany and the University of Nairobi, before obtaining a PhD in 1971 from the University of Nairobi, where she is also taught veterinary anatomy, the first woman in East and Central Africa to earn a doctorate degree. Professor Wangari Madai became the chair of the Department of Veterinary Anatomy and an associate professor in 1976 and 1977 respectively. Both cases, she was the first woman to attain those positions in the region. Professor Wangari Madai was active in the National Council of Women of Kenya in 1976 to 1987. It was its chairman. She was the chairman in 1981 to 1987. In 1976, while she was serving as the National Council of Women professor, Wangari introduced the idea of community-based tree planting, and she continued to develop this idea into a broad-based grassroots organization whose main focus is poverty eradication and environmental conservation through tree planting. Professor Madai presented the Tetu constituency in Kenyan Parliament from 2002 to 2007 and served as Assistant Minister for Environment and Natural Resources in Kenya, 9th Parliament, 2003 to 2007. In 2005, she was appointed Goodwill Ambassador of the Congo Basin Forest Ecosystem by the 11 head of state of the Congo region. The following year, in 2006, she founded the Nobel Women Initiative with her sister Laureate Jody Williams, Shireen Badi, Roberta Manchutam, Betty Williams, and Mia Reid Corrigan in 2007. Professor Mazai was invited to be co-chair of Congo Basin Fund, an initiative by the British and the Norwegian government to help protect the Congo forest. Her human rights are not things that are put on the table for people to enjoy. These are things you fight for and then you protect. Nobel laureate Wangari's love for nature was soon tested by the population explosion of consequently by the need for growing more food. Moreover, in order to support agricultural needs, people started cutting the nearby forest in order to extend their fields. In those years, it was almost impossible to make the farmers understand. In the long run, the deforestation could have devastating effects also in agriculture and on the whole environment. Therefore, when Professor Wangari started the campaign in favor of land, many people looked at her with hostility. Professor Wangari Madai was internationally acknowledged for her struggle for democracy, human rights, and environmental conservation, and served on the board of many organizations. She addressed the UN on a number of occasions and spoke on behalf of women at special sessions at the General Assembly during the 5-year review of the Earth Summit. She served on the Commission for Global Governance and the Commission on the Future. Throughout my life, I have never stopped to strategize about my next step. I often just keep walking along, through whichever door opens. I have been on a journey, and this journey has been stopped when the journey is acknowledged and sustained by those I work with. They are a force for inspiration, energy, and encouragement. They are the reason I keep walking, and I will keep walking as long as my knees hold out. Notwithstanding the opposition, Nobel laureate Inga did not bend, and even risking her own personal safety, kept on with the determination on the road she had started. For her, Mother Nature, as she used to say, needed first to be respected in order for people to enjoy the benefits of her goodness. In harmony with Africa's spirituality, Professor Wangari Madai cared first for the indigenous trees, the roots of which contributed considerably to check soil erosion, and in particular the mugumo tree, under the shade of which most important meetings of the community were taking place. Since the ancestors used to value it, its manifestation of the vitality and creative power of God. Professor Wangari Mazai had a special concern towards the younger generation, aware she was of many implications of inheriting a totally exhausted land robbed of its rich resources. The efforts to keep the integrity of the environment found a concentration in 1977 with the birth of Greenbelt Movement that Wangari Madai started and promoted. The main objective of this initiative were to exercise pressure to the politicians in order to foster laws respectful of nature and to educate the youth about the environment and especially mobilize women. Karura Forest, Uhuru Park, Great Lake region will be remembered as among the most relevant initiatives in which the incredible Nobel laureate Wangari Madai lavished her competence and energies. Karura Forest is the main green lung of Nairobi, a section of the urban area always in the sight of development and corrupt politicians. Engaged in building, Uhuru Park is the second green lung of the capital, a welcoming area for the free gathering of populations, especially the less privileged, in order to defend the integrity of those two zones. Wangari Maathai to face opposition, mudsliding campaigns, and even political marginalization. The Great Lake region, the huge African rivers, the Nile, the Congo, the Zambezi originate, and this is where so many endangered animal species thrive. The Greenbelt Movement became the spokesperson of these areas, and up to present, it maintains a network of educational activities to plant trees, is now a set to feature in all the social gatherings of the area. Today, we are faced with a challenge that calls for a shift in our thinking so that humanity stops threatening its life support system. We are called to assist the earth to heal her wounds and in the process, heal our own. Indeed, to embrace the whole of creation in all the diversity, beauty, and wonder, recognizing the sustainable development, democracy, and peace are invisible in an idea whose time has come. In recognition to her deep commitment to the environment, the United Nations Secretary-General named Professor Mazai a UN Messenger of Peace in December 2009. With a focus on the environment and climate change, in 2010, she was appointed the Millennium Development Goal Advocacy Group, a panel of the political leaders, business people, and activists established with the aim to galvanize worldwide support for the achievement of the Millennium Development Goals. Also in 2010, Professor Wangari Madai became a trustee of the Karura Forest Environmental Education Trust, established to safeguard the public land for those protections she had fought for almost 20 years. That same year, in partnership with the University of Nairobi, She founded the Wangari Madai Institute for Peace and Environmental Studies to bring together academic research, including in use of land, forestry, agriculture, resource-based conflict, and peace studies. With the Greenbelt Movement approach, the members of the organization, I have always felt that perhaps women have sometimes also embraced the same values of men and the same character as men because they are in the men's world and they are trying to fit into a system that men have created. And maybe, in truth, when there is a critical mass of women who play the role of government, then we will see whether women can really manage power in a way that is less destructive than the way that men have used power. Wangari Maathai married Mwangi Madai in 1969, and they had 3 children, 2 daughters, Wanjira, Muta, and 1 son, Wareru. However, they filed for divorce in 1977, her husband claiming she was too strong-minded as a woman and it was too difficult to control her. Professor Wangari was also accused by her ex-husband of adultery with another member of parliament, which in turn was thought to cause his high blood pressure. After a much publicized messy divorce, the court ruled in favor of Mwangi Maathai. She criticized the judge for being incompetent and corrupt, resulting to her being sentenced to jail for 6 months, but was released after 3 days. Through his lawyer, Mwangi asked Wangari to drop his son in Madai as they were no longer married. Being the exceptionally brilliant woman she was, Wangari added, instead of changing her name, she added an extra A in the name Madai after the letter M, making her surname Madai. Education, if it means anything, it should take people away from the land, but instill in them even more respect for it, because educated people are in a position to understand what is lost. The future of the planet concerns all of us, and all of us should do what we can to protect it. As I told the foresters and the women, you don't need a diploma to plant a tree. Wangari initially went to the foresters for advice, and they laughed at her, saying she needed a diploma to plant trees. Undeterred, she approached local women and raised awareness that their homeland would soon be a desert if there was no change. She also explained the feedback loop that was beginning to take shape. By having less firewood, the villagers would have less energy to cook wholesome foods, which would create a dependency on refined foods loaded with carbohydrates. More carbohydrates in the food means suffering from diseases caused by malnutrition due to food lacking essential protein and vitamin. The only way to protect the environment, what I knew, it was to educate the masses by making them understand the importance of their own resources necessary for survival. Initially, the women were left alone because no one at state level took their organization seriously. Once 6,000 tree nurseries were created, however, the government realized the power of their mobilization and began to harass them. Over time, what was revealed was the intersectional between women's liberation and climate change. The movement that started out of a tree planting campaign ended up inspiring women to stand up for themselves and their work, freeing them from domineering husbands, village chiefs, and presidents. The Greenbelt Movement proves that planting trees is simple. The difficult lies in the narrative that people cannot create change themselves, and that help must come from the outside. Millions of planted trees through this program have provided fuel, food, shelter, income, and an improvement to soil watershed. It has empowered citizens by giving them hope for peace with one another and with nature. It's not only a question of reforesting the country, she stated, but also a fight for democracy and the respect for human rights. She wanted especially to empower the women through seminars, laboratories, demonstrations, and ecological initiatives in which science, social commitment, and political education could go together. Greenbelt Movement became a network of initiatives concerning women education, family planning, and campaigning against corruption. I want to do the right things. I want to plant trees. I want to make sure that the indigenous forests are protected because I know whatever happens, these are the forests that contain biodiversity. These are the forests that help us retain water when it rains and keeps our rivers flowing. These are the forests that many future generations will need. Wangari Madai. The idea of planting became popular also outside Kenya. In Tanzania, Uganda, Malawi, Lesotho, Ethiopia, and Zimbabwe, women got together to promote Wangari's ideas. The experts in the environment from all over the world started appreciating Professor Wangari Madai. Several acknowledgements and awards started materializing, among them the Goldman Foundation Award in 1991, which presents a kind of Nobel Prize among the ecologists. But the most pleasing acknowledgement was referred to Wangari by her fellow women, who called her freedom fighter.
I call upon Wangari Maathai to give her Nobel lecture.
Your Majesties, Your Royal Highness, honorable members of the Norwegian Nobel Committee, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you and the world, humbled by this recognition and uplifted by the honor of being the 2004 Nobel Peace Laureate. As the first African woman to receive this prize, I accept it on behalf of the people of Kenya and Africa, and indeed the whole world.
In October 2004, Wangari Maathai was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. The Nobel Peace Prize at last came to an African woman. As representatives of the heroic African women, who are the backbone of their families and countries, in the written motivation of the award, Wangari's contribution to sustainable development, democracy, and peace are clearly mentioned. This sums up her steady commitment to the environment, her civic passion for the respect of human rights, and the promotion of peace among peoples, the precious heritage worth keeping and valuing by everybody. Other awards include the Right Livelihood Award in 1984 and the Indira Gandhi Peace Prize in 2006. She is also an author of Bound, One Woman's Story, Wangari Maathai, The Challenge for Africa, and the Greenbelt Movement. She wrote, although I was a highly educated woman, it did not seem odd to me to be working with my hands, often with my knees on the ground, alongside rural women. Some politicians and others in the 1980s and 1990s ridiculed me for doing so. I had no problem with it. The rural women both accepted and appreciated that I was working with them to improve their lives and their environment. After all, I was a child of the same soil. Education, if it means anything, should not take people away from the land, but instill in them even more respect for it, because educated people are in a position to understand that what is being lost, the future of the planet, concerns all of us, and we should do whatever we can to protect it. Nobel laureate Professor Wangari Madai died on 25th September 2011 at the age of 71 after a battle with ovarian cancer. She had planted over 51 million trees in Kenya and had launched a campaign that was led to the planting of 11 billion trees worldwide. And that is her. I'll hand it over to
Sayumbua.
Hi.
Thank you so much for your presentation. You know, I'm so sorry that we missed out on your national anthem.
It's okay.
I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened there. It just all looked like it was going skiwiff. But yeah, if you could play it now, it'd be great. As GPAN rep, it would be great. Are you able to?
I can share the screen.
Yeah, and share the screen and play the national anthem.
Because I also did that the same for the last video part, so it will still play the same.
Okay. Try it. Let's try.
There you go.
Thank you. I've redeemed myself.
Yeah. I think we're one of the bunch of Kenyans who are madly in love with the national anthem.
Oh wow! Look at that. I'm at peace now. Okay. Thank you.
But she was mind blowing. I got an opportunity to work with her, and also got my time back then as a journalist. I had the opportunity to cover her funeral, so I got to know even double about her. And every time I talk about her, I mean, I was like, I cannot do any other female. It has to be her.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Truly inspirational. Truly inspirational. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
Thank you.
Okay. We're going to move on to our keynote speaker now, Fubara Nelly, who is going to be honoring the call, speaking about honoring the call. And I do hope that this time we'll be able to stream you properly. Let me take myself off. Welcome, Aya. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
We can.
I just love technology, particularly when it works.
Me too. All right. I'm
going. I'll leave it to it. Well, thank you so much, Diana. You have been absolutely amazing, and Leah before you. And I want to say that it has been a particular treat to hear all of the speakers so far. Nikita, you just ushered us into the present and, talking about Eugenia Charles and the work she's done. And I tell you, anyone who's just coming in, if you haven't heard the previous presentations, really important that we do, because that you go back and you listen to them, because as Edwina told us, Sister Edwina told us, we cannot really effectively chart our future if we don't understand our past. And so this is not just his story, it's her stories, right? It's our culture, it's who we are, and understanding what we experienced in the past will better help us figure out what we're going through now, how to get through it, and how to plan and prepare for an even brighter future for future generations. And so I want to thank all of the speakers who came before me. I want to thank the organizers of this event, and definitely Brother Daniel as well. And Berichi, you have a really bright future. I was so proud to hear that you are going to be pursuing a master's in history. Again, this is just an area that we seem to be neglecting worldwide, in favor of quote unquote sexier topics and jobs and things of that nature. But let me tell you, those of us who study history, those of us who collect, curate, promote, preserve our history, we are preservers of culture. And so today I wanted to talk about honoring the call. And I want to thank so much Simboa, I hope I'm saying your name right. I want to thank you so much for that presentation on the amazing Wangari. I don't even know that I have the right to call her that. If she were in front of me today, of course, I'll be calling her Mama and not even trying to call her by her first name. Obviously, she's an ancestor now, but everything that you said about her, she's a woman that I've studied, never got the opportunity to meet personally, but I believe that she embodies what it is in this short presentation on honoring the call. When I think of her and so many other women who were referenced, many of whom I have in my notes, I'll briefly mention their names, but again, go back and listen to what the speakers before me shared, because they shared more details about these women's lives, which allows me to now focus more on the latter part of my presentation instead of having to share more on these women's lives. But every woman that I'm going to reference, and definitely when we talk about Mama Madai, that's sort of what I'll call her, she embodies what I would say is a woman. And when I think about women, I'm thinking about the W being for wise. That we women, African women, wherever we are in the diaspora, have always been an essential part of the development of our peoples, of our land, of our continent, of wherever it is that we've migrated to willingly and unwillingly, okay? Whether we showed up as leaders, right? We can talk about Hatshepsut. We can talk about female pharaohs. Pharaoh actually did not mean male, but we can talk about female leaders going all the way back to Sudan, to Kush, to Kemet. And we had some speakers who referenced this. Women have always been wise. We have always been really careful to tap into the wisdom of not just our own experiences, but the wisdom of the creative intelligence, understanding that there's something greater than us that is in existence, right? And so we're less likely, in the past, we've been less likely to be led by ego. And when Sister Simboya was saying, when she was quoting Mama Wangari, and she was saying, let us see how women wield power, whether we will do a greater job of using power than our men have. I think this taps into, she's calling forth that tradition of women operating from a place of wisdom. And wisdom means it's not just about what happens here and now. It's about what are the implications of what we do moving forward. So the W in woman stands for wisdom, that we've always been wise. And that is something that we are being called to be again today. With all of the challenges facing us, women must rise up and be wise. Now, I'm not saying that anything that I'm saying is particular to women and that men cannot heed this. We are all human. But of course, today we are focusing on women and our call, right? Honoring our call. The O in women for me stands for optimistic. I mean, listen, You take the lives of any of the women we've heard about, whether it's Queen Nzinga, right? Who first and foremost is in a patriarchal system, and her brother dies before it's like, okay, now she can lead, even though she has all this wisdom and capacity to lead, right? We talk about, I referenced Hatshepsut already, and we talk about how long after she passed away, the men who came after her were trying to erase her from history, right? But it was impossible because she was actually incredibly, not just wise, strategic. And she accomplished so much in terms of infrastructure, in terms of reestablishing trade routes, that it was impossible to wipe her out. There is not a museum that you go to that has artifacts on Kemet, which is, what we now call Egypt, that will not include a figurine or something that has to do with Hatshepsut. That's how influential she was. But despite all the challenges that we face, many of our African women who were leaders had to deal with issues within the home, had to deal with, how do I deal with patriarchy, right? So whether it ended up in divorce, or whether it ended up in never being married, or whether it ended up in, yeah, we're still married, but I'm really doing my own thing here because he's really out here doing something else. There've been these challenges trying to fight to get our children in societies who have now followed a rule of law that disenfranchises us, right? Trying to get into quote unquote these male dominated areas. Whatever the challenges have been, what women have been, African women have been optimistic. The O is for optimistic. And so we look those challenges in the face, we see them for what they are, and we say, you know what? We know whose shoulders we stand on. We know what blood flows in us. We have the blood of Queen Amina flowing in us, right? We have the blood of Ya Asantewa flowing in us. We have the blood of Queenie Dia flowing with us. We have the blood. Listen, therefore, we don't give up. We stay optimistic. The M in woman stands for mindful. And that mindfulness kind of goes hand in hand with wisdom. And that's that perspective that says, wait a second, let's take a step back. Let's not rush into anything immediately, but let's really be strategic about what are all the ways this decision can impact us. And so again, when we talk about intersectionality, and we understand that if we destroy our environment, it will exacerbate poverty. We understand that if we exacerbate poverty, women will be in worse shape. We understand that if women are in worse shape, their daughters are going to have even fewer options, right? And so mindfulness causes us to pause and to look at things in a holistic manner, and then to work from that perspective. Right? So we are more introspective about things. It doesn't mean that we can't move quickly. It just means that we are measuring what we do. We are being very mindful. The E, right? I'm going through an acrostic basically for women. The E is that we've always been empowered. You know what? I wouldn't lie to you. There are times when I get on African women forums, and I see the ways that we attack one another. I see the debilitating conversations. I see, whether it's under the guise of religion or just other cultural, quote unquote, concepts that people have now embraced, not even recognizing that these are relatively new cultures we're embracing as opposed to how we really used to exist. When I look at some of the things that we say, women in particular, to each other, but that definitely what we echo from men, I wonder if we remember how empowered we have always been. I wonder if we can go back and reread the histories of the women who came before us, or at least listen to the stories of our own mothers, because I tell you, history is lived, right? Her story. And every one of you has access to an older woman who can tell you a story about when she faced hardships and figured out a way to overcome because she found a way to empower herself. And we hear those stories and we repeat those stories so we too can be empowered. So in my lineage, I have the queen, she would be called the queen today, but Kambasa. Kambasa is the only female to have ruled the kingdom of Boni. And when I read what we do know about her history, I'm empowered. I'm empowered by this woman who said, I don't care that it, quote unquote, has not been done in recent history, because women have always ruled. I don't care if men feel like this is their purview and theirs alone. I am studying how this governance system works, and I am going to take the place of my father. And when her father passed away, before the men realized what was happening, she had gone through the process. She had consolidated the guards. She had all their support, and she was basically able to set herself up. And then the community agreed with it, set herself up as queen. And so women have always been empowered. We've always been willing to figure out how to make it work, quite frankly, by any means necessary. And so some of you may know of a time that, an event that is popularly known as the About Women's Riot, that actually exceeds just quote unquote about women. But these were women who basically said no to taxation, no to the British just coming in and tearing up our entire communities and turning us into their slaves, essentially. And these women fought. These women at one point showed up, took their clothes off and said, here we are. And we are ready to lay down our lives for our freedom. And they did. So when we even talk about, some of the speakers earlier mentioned the women soldiers of Dahomey, right? And now it's been popularized in Black Panther. We have always been warriors. Definitely when you talk about Queen Idia, her son recognized that he could not have attained his position had it not been for the spiritual and military influence of his mother and the things that she was able to do. So we have always been empowered. And the end is we have always been nurturing. We have always realized that we must maintain our lineage, that we must plan for the future, that we must figure out how to make the world a better place for the future generation. We can't just kill everything and everyone. And that's why I'm truly hoping that as we get to a place of more balance, as we get to a place of ma'at, where there is reciprocity and there's balance, that we will come back to a place where we're just not arbitrarily destroying everything around us. And so I want to thank again all the speakers who evoked the names of people like Tachu Betol, who was a queen and empress of Ethiopia. I would be, I couldn't give this whole presentation without bringing up one of my personal heroes, Fumilayo Ransome Kuti, right in Nigeria. I'm actually from the area of Africa now called Nigeria, because y'all, we need to understand that our continent was basically just carved out by these imposters, by these invaders. And so we don't have to stay within those boundaries. I'm an African. I just happen to be from that area that is now marked out as Nigeria. But Fumilayo Ransome Kuti was a fighter. She was a woman who was wise, who was optimistic, who was mindful, who was empowered, and at the same time, she was nurturing. This is a woman who fought for what we are now calling women's rights, who said women have a right to lead, and she galvanized women. And she empowered women, and she did it without concern about class, which is another thing that is happening. Is even within the women's movement, it's like, well, who's a professional and who's at this level and who's just a trader and who's illiterate. For Fumilayo Ransome Kuti, she saw the power in bringing all of us together, understanding that we all have a role to play. And that's exactly what she did. Whether it was with the Abeokuta Women's Union or whether it was with the Women's International Democratic Federation, she fought for us, right? And of course, other women that we can mention very quickly who have already been evoked today. President Elaine Johnson, who was the first woman who was actually elected as a president in Africa. Although we've had other female leaders like Sylvie Kiningi, who was acting president of Burundi. We have Ivy Matsepe Kasaburi, who was acting president of South Africa in 2005. We have Agnes Monique Osan Belapo, who was the acting president of Mauritius back in 2012 and again in 2015. We have Joyce Banda, who was president of Malawi for 2 years from 2012 to 2014. And then we have Catherine Samba, who was the acting president of Central African Republic for 2 years. And we have Saleh Work Zewedi, who is in Ethiopia, and it's more of a ceremonial role, but she's also the president of Ethiopia. And of course, we have our latest president who has just taken over in Tanzania, that we also must acknowledge and pray that she chooses to do the work that represents who we are as women, and that is Samia Suluhu Hassan. So in sharing these women from the past, and there's so many more, and in sharing the women from the present, people like Okonjo-Iweala, right? And there's so many women right now in the United Nations and UNESCO and all of the entrepreneurs, the women in the technological spaces who are doing amazing things, the women in law who are fighting for the rights of women and young girls, the women in education who are advancing access to education. As we look at all of these women, one thing that is really clear, and Eberichi spoke to this, is that there is a lot of work yet for us to do. And this work requires all hands on deck, like all hands on the plow, so to speak. Like each and every one of us, no matter where we are in the world, no matter our level of education, no matter our age, we have work to do right where we are. You know, there's a phrase that I like to use, which is, bloom where you're planted. I may not be in Nigeria right now, but where I am in the United States, I am doing work here to advance the rights, the liberation of African people. And while I'm working here, I am still doing work on my continent. At this time in particular, I'm working on establishing a library in my hometown of Opobo, which is a town with over 3,000 young kids that does not have a library. And we know education is important. So as we look at the past, and as we honor the call on our lives, and I believe that there is a call on every single African woman's life. You cannot have this DNA. Listen, all of life originated in Africa. All of life. The very first human beings came through an African woman's womb. If that does not tell you that it is time for us to stand up and own our power in this day and age, I don't know what else will. And I don't care what stories we've heard or all the ways that society may try to put us down. We all have a role to play. I think of people like even Miriam Makeba. You can say, oh, she was a singer, but she was a singer who used her voice to fight for the liberation of our people. Of course, we can talk about Mama Winnie, right? And we can talk about what she went through personally. If you've never read her biography, oh my God, what she went through to fight for, to stand up for who we are, and to keep Nelson Mandela's name alive in the world, which eventually allowed him to be released and then become president. We must honor the calling on the lives of the women that have come before us and use that as fuel for our own lives, for the calling on our own lives. And some of the things that we must focus on moving forward, and this is where I'm going to end, we absolutely need to look at environmental justice. You know, one of the things that just grieved my spirit during my last visit right before the pandemic hit, last February, I was in Africa. I was in Nigeria, to be specific, and had no idea that it would be a while before I could get back because of this pandemic. But one of the things that just hurt my soul was just the ways in which we have desecrated our environment, if we understand that the very earth on which we stand is what nurtures and sustains us, how then can we treat Mother Earth in the way that we do? That is akin to me seeing my mother right now, slapping her, throwing her down on the ground, stepping all over her, throwing refuse on her and walking away. That is what we are doing to Mother Earth. So environmental justice must be one of the areas that we as women take the forefront, just like Mama Wangari did, right? We must look at what are we doing with our garbage? What are the recycling options? How can we use more sustainable measures as we try to advance, right? And for those of us who are in the science field, how do we really pay attention to the long-term effects of what we're doing? I mean, there was plastic everywhere. And I'm going, my goodness, what is this doing to our environment? Right? Another area, human rights, and we can call it women's rights. We can call it, a fight for girls. We can talk about gender equality. We can talk about, domestic violence. There are lots of different things we can put under it. But ultimately, when we talk about human rights, we're talking about the rights of a woman to just be, the rights of a woman to have equal access to everything, to be able to become the best version of herself, to not be limited in any way because she happens to have a vagina versus a penis. It makes no sense for us as a people, first of all, to know that all life comes through a woman, and then to decide that same source of life is supposed to be subjugated and controlled. That has to be one of the biggest lies of all times. And the fact that some of us women actually buy into this is so detrimental to us. Because with us being really the majority in our continent, if we ever came together, whenever women come together, we make incredible change for good. If we ever came together on this understanding that yes, we have the power to rule, and to rule with wisdom, with optimism, right? Be mindful rulers, to rule and empower, to rule and to nurture. We would change the face of how Africa operates. And we would definitely change our status in terms of the poverty and the pain and the killing. Definitely, we as women need to be at the forefront of talking about family and communal relations. How is it that we operate together? There was a time when we really knew that the only way to get ahead was to work in tandem. And now we bought into this Western idea of individualism. How many degrees can I get? And how can I create a haven just for me and mine? And I can live in a mansion and not care that just down the street, there's one who is completely languishing. In our African societies, we used to have societies where there were no jails. There were no old people's homes. There were no motherless babies' homes. There were no mental institutions. When you talk about real family and communal relations, we found a way to take care of all of ours within a system that nurtured everyone as a human being. We did not throw people away. Women have to lead the charge to get back to that place. A place where there was true justice, where women actually looked at women's issues. When in America, I'm an attorney, we talk about being judged by your peers. And we had parallel options where if a man, transgressed cultural norms, he was judged by men. And when a woman did, she was judged by women. And both sides respected each other. And now we've completely turned it on its head, buying into Western ideology that is tearing us apart. Of course, we must talk about access to quality education for all young people. Because if we are not educated, if we cannot harness our abilities, how do we build a brighter future? And here's the thing, we were always an educated people. Forget about whether it's quote unquote formal or informal education. Africans always had a rites of passage. We always taught, how do we build our homes? How do we harvest from the soil to heal our own illnesses? We had healers. We had our own spiritual leaders. We had those who worked iron and those who worked wood. And those lessons were passed down from generation to generation. Don't ever let anyone tell you we weren't educated, because there are different forms of education. And we have to get back to a place where we're, again, not saying some people have access to education and some people won't. Cultural preservation, incredibly important. Today, we're all speaking in English. Oh my God, what a tragedy that as Africans, we can't come together and say, here are 2 or 3 African languages that all of us should commit to learning. Let's preserve our own culture, because language has power. And there are words that I know in Igbo that I can't translate to English. It doesn't have the same effect of it. So we must do our part as women to preserve our culture. Not the pomp and pageantry things we're doing right now, but the real meaning of how we lived and how we existed. And of course, I've talked about economic equity. Finally, women, we need to be at the forefront for a united Africa. Because again, we've all heard the saying, divided we fall, right? And that is exactly what the conquerors have done from time immemorial for us, is to come in and divide us. And that way we're more easily conquered. And so we women, we have got to be at the forefront, and we have got to know that we cannot give up. We cannot look fear in its face and run in the opposite direction. We can only overcome it by facing it. And we have a calling on our lives. The women before us answered that call. And now is our time to honor that call on our lives as well. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak to you all. And I pray that each and every one of you right here in this moment is making a decision about how you are going to join the fight for a brighter future for Africans wherever we are. And it's not just about your individual life. It is us as a collective. And I hope you will share your ideas of what you're going to do to help advance us. God bless you all.
Debbie, you're muted. You're muted. We can't hear you. That's better. Sorry, you were muted. Start again, sis.
Okay. Yep, I just wanted to thank Aya Fubara Nelly for her absolutely great presentation today. She truly answered the call today. Thank you for educating us, for showing us the great women we can be. I've learned so much today, and I'm very proud to be part of today's presentation, and to share this platform with some great women. So thank you again. I'm going to move on to Precious Nairambi, who's a social entrepreneur, international speaker, coach, mentor, and author. She founded Vessels of Virtue, an organization that holistically empowers and transforms women, especially from previously marginalized backgrounds. The organization has a marketplace mandate of seeing individuals, families, communities, and nations having a voice over the mountains of influence. Vessels of Virtue has an academy for entrepreneurs, a magazine, beauty range, and TV show under it. The organization collaborates whenever possible. At this moment in time, I'd like to bring to the stage Precious Nairambi. Thank you.
Hi, Debbie. Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity. I'm grateful for this very moment as we continue to celebrate women across the globe, particularly African women. It is a privilege and an honor for me to be sharing my insights. And firstly, I would just like to honor my own mom, who passed on a while ago, a woman who did not give up on me, a woman who endured the 9 months and gave birth to a woman like me. I want to appreciate the immediate women that are around me, my sisters, my mentors, my coach, and people that feed into what I do daily, some that actively pray, some that blesses me in different ways. I would like to appreciate all of them. I would like to appreciate the ladies that are on this platform that are doing tremendous and amazing work for Africa, in Africa, and for Africans. It's an honor to be amongst the giants that are setting the trends and changing the narrative with the aim of empowering Africans. I salute you and I honor you. And I would like to say here is to women that are intelligent, women that are determined, women that are strong, women that are talented, women that are honest, women that are brave, women that are reliable, women that are generous, women that are ambitious, women that are powerful and outspoken, women that are willing to go out of their way to bless another woman, whether the woman is privileged or is not privileged. Here's to women that wants to transform all sorts of women from the rural background part of Africa to the A-list of the women. Here's to all of you. We honor you, we salute you. I just want to tackle a little bit of the she heroes, the women that I deem to be women that are doing notable things. I believe there are many, but I'll mention a few because I believe all of our collective efforts, they add to something that is meaningful, that is slowly changing the narrative of Africa from a place where women have been previously marginalized culturally, economically, in all sorts of spheres. Women have been previously marginalized. It is actually a good thing to see ourselves actively even being on this platform to discuss and ponder on these matters, to celebrate the women that are doing remarkable work. I am grateful. So I would like to just mention a few, as I alluded to earlier. One of the ladies that I really that I model, that I love, is a woman from my own country, Zimbabwe. I'm a Zimbabwean living in South Africa. South Africa is my second home. I believe in Pan-Africanism. I personally love Mrs. Tsitsi Masiwa. I love her devotion to her faith. I love the works that she's doing tremendously in Zimbabwe. I love the woman that she is, her boldness. I love that she has demonstrated leadership in so many ways. She's such a servant leader, a woman that I have seen demonstrating and leading and pioneering so many things that are changing the narrative. According to my research that I did earlier on this week, she has been able to send about 250,000 children to school in Zimbabwe. And these are some of the children that were affected by HIV, especially when it became such a pandemic in the early 90s and the 2000s. She has done remarkable work. I mean, when you see a woman that is devoted in making sure that the next generation is educated, the next generation is empowered, that woman is interested in seeing a better future. Because I have seen that in some instances as women, sometimes if you are okay and things are okay in your space, sometimes we cannot create the room for the next person to be able to get to the next level. So for me, I have seen her demonstrating tremendous leadership skills. She's a person who walks her talk. She says something and she does it. And for me, that's one of the things that I love about her. She's not afraid. She's a lioness. Whenever I look at her, I see a lioness. I see a woman who is bold. I see a woman that is changing the narrative of a child that didn't have hope, a child that had no idea of where the school fees is going to come from. I see a woman who is saying, I'm not going to do this alone. I'm going to do it with the next woman that is around me. I'm going to do it with different stakeholders. I see her stepping up in so many instances, and that has always spoken to my heart. That has always given me hope that, you know what, with my little things that I do, imagine if there's a myriad of all these things that we all do, taking each person, starting from even our own homes, our own circles of influence that we are directly linked to. You know, success is not only to the people that are far, where we exude success and we are doing tremendous things. Success is taking even the people, immediate people that are around us. So I have seen her demonstrating this even in her own home country. I've seen her being a change maker. I've seen that she communicates very well, and she interacts with everybody. Why am I saying this? For me, it's critical that sometimes as a people, we are so good, we are so eloquent, we say all these things, but sometimes our actions are not matching what we are saying. And if Africa is going to go to the next level where it's supposed to go, if women are going to empower one another, I think we need to start by just having united hearts, and maybe just coming from a place where we say women are able to unite their hearts despite of differences, you know, despite of competences, despite the age, marginalities and all these things. I believe that we need to be practical. We need to be able to unify our efforts for us to be relevant. If we are united, we can be able to do so much more. I think the speaker before me alluded to that if we are not united, we cannot lead anyone. Women have that ability to change societies. Women have the ability to change themselves. Women have the ability to change economies. Women have the ability to change a continent, particularly Africa in this season. But I am saying that let's start with one woman at a time. Let's start with our hearts being united, and then we can be able to be more relevant. And I'm also saying that let's identify intentionally and actively identify areas where we can say there is a little orphan in the street, there is a little girl in the street. What does she need? Just those basics, just those practicalities that they matter too. If we change that little girl's life, we have changed the destiny. We have given a hope to say that there are other women that are ahead of us, but they are not doing it alone. They are being relevant even to the least. So my quest to the women, even as we wrap up the month of March and celebrating women, I am challenging all of us to say, in all that we do, let's start in our environments. Let's start even with the least privileged. Let's take them to school. Let's empower them. Let us engage them. Let our talks match our actions. Let us be able to measure impact. I think all of us can talk, but if the impact and the actions can match what we are saying, it makes more sense. Some of the attributes that I look for, that I find in the lady that I'm passionate about, that I'm speaking about, Mrs. Sisimasiwa today, is that she's knowledgeable and well-rounded. I've seen her taking her time to demonstrate, to even facilitate masterclasses for the youths. She's so passionate about it. She has time for everyone. Her heart is so big. I've never seen that. It humbles me, you know. She's so humble. I've seen her humility. That's why I was saying that she can speak to anyone. She has time for anyone. And she does good. This woman, I've seen her doing good. I have seen her doing magnificent things. I've seen her being so humble about it. And so my challenge really is that can what we say match what we do? Because for a long time as Africans, we have apportioned blame. And when we apportion blame, we are not being responsible. Can we start even in our local communities where there are young girls, where there are elderly in our communities? The speaker before me spoke about there not being in history before us. There were no places like homes where we would take the elderly. Can we start by that Ubuntu being relevant to the people that are around us? We should not leave anyone behind. It doesn't make sense to build an empire in a location or in a village and everyone around you does not have. I want to challenge us as women that those girls that you see in the streets, before you even judge them, take them, sit down with them, hear their stories, empower them. Ask yourself, what good have you done to someone today? What good have you done? What impact have you made? Can it be measured? It starts with those things. Can you account for it? Even with the small resources that you have, sometimes it's not monetary, sometimes it's even just the time. Have you had time for that girl? Have you had time for that woman that you found in the streets? Have you supported her? I mean, go beyond your comfort zones. If we are going to transform Africa as women, we need to be practical. We need to walk our talk. We need to be relevant. And I just want us to be a little bit bolder, a little bit more confident, a little bit, present. We need to be present. Sometimes I've seen that as women, we sabotage each other the most. And sometimes it doesn't make sense. You are sitting there thinking, if we could just do this thing together, if our hearts are one, we can be able to cover so much. So I want just to just say that there are a lot of women that are doing glorious and beautiful things. And I'll give you another example of some of the women that I love. I love Michelle Obama. She's an African woman. She represents balance. She represents availability. She's a woman who is educated. She's a woman who is a wife, who is a mother. She's a woman who is a leader in her own right. She's a woman who engages with the communities around her. She's passionate about the girls. She's a trendsetter in her own right. But she's taking other girls around her. She's taking the youths around her. So for me, what speaks to me more is women holding each other accountable. Women, if you feel like maybe I've slowed down, or my pace is not where it should have been, or maybe I'm discouraged, let just hold my hand and say, no, precious, you can do this. You are able. What is it? What do you need? I've seen tremendous things happening in my personal life and in my own journey of the things I do. And I spoke to that earlier, and I said, I'm a product of many women before me. I'm a product of many women that are around me. I don't do things in isolation. If I feel stuck, I have to ask as well. I go and I ask. If some women see that maybe I'm not doing things rightly, they are able to say, no, precious, can you do this well? History shows that women are able, women, when they purpose in their hearts to do something, they are able to do it. We are well able to do exceedingly and abundantly all we could ever think or ask, as long as we set our hearts to it. But my challenge to us today, as we commemorate women, I'm just saying that imagine each woman represented here doing amazing things in their own spheres. If we start with the people around us, if we start with our communities, if we take every one of us and not disqualify people based on what we think we know of them, love can go a long way. Sometimes if you just sit and you hear a person's needs, you are amazed that you've just been actually more than relevant. So I think that women are capable, women are well to do if they unite their hearts and their efforts. I've seen also, I spoke to this last week through my organization, when a woman is empowered, whichever way of empowerment that you want to tackle, whether it's emotional empowerment, it's educational empowerment, financial empowerment, job empowerment, You've given that woman a voice. So sometimes it's very important for us to empower different forms of empowerment. If you have empowered another woman, you've given that woman a voice. So it's important for us to actively, intentionally identify ways of empowering each other. If it means inviting someone to sit on the same table with us, let's do it. Let's celebrate each other. Let's embrace our diversity. We are beautiful in our own unique ways, but let's celebrate each other's diversity, because that diversity, it brings in the necessary components that makes up a beautiful, beautiful body. So yes, I believe that our little efforts, they are strategic. They can be able to transform the narrative of Africa. And I have seen Mama Tsitsi Masiwa doing amazing and tremendous work through her organization, Higher Life Foundation. I've seen them actively going to the rural parts. I've seen them actively just making sure that the children are fed. They're engaging in the ECD space. Imagine the impact of that in 5 years, or even at the end of the year, the impact of making sure that people have salaries even beyond their scope, the impact of just making sure that people have medical appliances. I mean, this is a woman with a heart. So I just want to challenge you and I as a woman this evening, this morning, this afternoon, to say that when our hearts opens up, when our heart is right, we are able to do mighty things. And when we open our hearts to help other people, for some reason, other people open doors for us as well. So we end up not being stuck. You know, it's I don't know if it's karma, if people want to call it karma, or if it's a principle of whatever we are seeding, we reap. But when we open up our hearts to be relevant to humanity, when we open up our hearts to even identify the human needs that are there, as women, because we are nurturers, we give birth, we have full understanding of what this thing is. I mean, even from a little girl, you can begin to see tendencies of a mother. That's our nature. We are nurturers. So when we identify opportunities actively, when we are intentional about seeing success, when we are intentional about matching our talk and our efforts daily, when we are saying, what have I done to change the narrative of someone? Maybe it's just information that I made available to that person, but what is it that I'm doing actively that I can say I have changed the narrative? I've changed the view that this person might have had over this, and that might have been limiting their belief system, that might have been limiting their actions towards something. So I just want to encourage women as we celebrate each other. The women that make sense to me are women that are doers, women that hear things to do, women that are intentional to learn from their experiences and impart the next generation, women that do not segregate each other, whether on the corporate space, on the business ladder, women that are intentional in making sure that every young girl, every young person, that they are on board. And I believe that impact has got ripple effects to change our narratives, to change our stories, to change who we are as Africans. If we are not united, we are wasting our time. We will forever talk. I mean, we have countries that have had independence for a long time, and it has taken a long time for them to see something meaningful. So I'm just saying that can we be united and build the Africa that we want? Can our hearts unite, particularly as women? Can we stand and defend each other? Can our voices matter? Can our voices be rallied? And can they be united? Our efforts and everything that concerns us, can it be united? And until then, we will not be able to see the Africa that we want to see. I believe there are a lot of things that we have to consider, but these are just my 2 cents contributions that I had to bring on board. And once again, I am grateful for the opportunity. I'm grateful for this very moment. I'm passionate about empowering women. I'm passionate about changing and empowering and transforming communities around me. And if that can be scaled to different parts of Africa, I'm excited. So thank you so much for this opportunity. over to you, Diana. Thank you.
Thank you so much. How inspiring, how amazing. Your talk has been so wonderful. You know, I got so much out of that, so much. You know, you said I got out of that it takes a loving heart to do the great things that we hope to achieve. Love is the key. Love is the key. And it is true that many of us want to sabotage other women. Many women do want to sabotage other women. And it seems that some of us haven't detached from our colonial mindset that set us against each other. And yet still we have great strength, and still we rise in spite of that. That shows that we have something greater than our circumstances within us. We have something greater than that. So we can rise.
And Diana, we can. You know, before, I honestly believe that as Africans, we are capable of loving one another. We are capable of loving each other beyond geography. We are capable of loving each other beyond gender. We are, if we could just get ourselves out of that zone where we think that we should have geography, we should have this tradition, this culture, or this tribe, or things like that. Generally, I believe that as Africans, it's in us. It's innate for us to be able to love and embrace each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely, I agree. I agree, and I am encouraged to love. And another thing we need to do, and you've just inspired me, and I just wrote down these few things that I got from your talk. You know, let us be encouraged to love and not seek for love, because if you give love, then love will come back to you.
That's true.
You see,
I agree.
A lot of women, they look for love, without the ability to give love.
To give it, yes.
Okay,
yes.
And so, and they can't give that love themselves because they haven't healed from pain. They haven't healed from a lot of pain from their past, from years ago. They walk around with it, and when they should be loving, they're just giving the opposite of what they should be giving. So instead of spreading love, they're spreading pain.
That's true.
You see, they need to heal from that, and they're spreading pain when all they're seeking is love. All they're seeking is love. So us as sisters, we need to help our sisters to heal. We need to recognize when our sisters are hurting, and instead of sabotaging them, instead of pulling them down because we ourselves are hurting as well, we need to try to come together and find healing amongst each other. And I believe we have the power to do it. I believe we are powerful enough to do it, you know, because we've had long enough under this world system to realize that the way we're doing things isn't working. It's not working for us because we're not moving forward the way we should be moving forward. So it's time to stop doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. It's time to do something different, and it's time to aspire to a higher wisdom now.
That's
the
true.
wisdom of our ancestors. It's time to seek the old way, the old path, and walk in it. My father always said that: seek the old path and walk in it. Now he was talking from a Christian perspective, but there is deepness in that. There is deepness in that. If we seek the old path where the ancients walked, look how wise they were, look how great they were. We're coming from kings and queens and dynasties. They must have had something.
Yes, they triumphed.
That held them together.
Triumphed in that era.
We triumphed. Look at the great women we've been speaking about.
Yes, yes.
They must have had something.
Leverage on.
Yeah, we've got that. We have to tap into that and get over the superficiality. Get over, we need to move up on a higher level. That's what we need to do. That's what we need to do. And I want to thank you so much for your talk. It's been so inspiring and wonderful. We're going to move off into a short break, but before we do, I'm just going to thank all our listeners who have tuned in today via YouTube, Facebook. Please do let us know what you think in the comments today, if you've been inspired, if you've learned something today, and let us know what you've got out of it. I want to thank our keynote speaker and all our speakers that have gone on before. We're going to take a short break again and then come back to a panel discussion with all our speakers, and let's all discuss together and see how we can become more inspired. And yeah, that's what we're going to do. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for being here. I just got so excited. You know, we have one more wonderful speaker to speak before we have our panel discussion, and I'm not even going to waste any more time. I'm going to bring her right on to the panel to speak. Diana Revelu, welcome. Welcome, my sister.
How are you? How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you, sis. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell everybody what you're going to speak about today?
Okay, I can do that.
Please.
I am, what can I say? I am Diana Revales. I am a councilwoman in my area. I am the vice president of the Haitian American Collaborative. I am the owner of the Ashe organization and Melcy, an organization I took over from my father, who was an activist. And I'm now, I guess, a correspondent here for the United States of Africa. And going into what I'm speaking about, which is quite profound from where we were just going from, is where Africa went and how the passion and the movement of women were within any revolution, hence my last name. You can start with the conversations of Anacona, who was one of the Dahomey, can't talk, chiefs when Columbus came. You can talk about Aunt Toya, who was a Dahomey woman, who actually raised Dessalines, who would be the father of our independence. You can go to women like Susan Louverture, who was the wife of another one of our fathers for our independence, and the bravery she had to go through. Sanette Blair, her courageous efforts in even designating the way she died. You can talk all the way to our Empress, Felicite, who created the soup to make sure that when we celebrated our independence, we would not celebrate it hungry. And actually, one of the very few holidays I know of with the importance of sharing. when you talk about our African women, our descent, our DNA, and fighting, if you think about captivity, most captivity, women are held at a more higher numbers than men, because as looked at cattle, you want to reproduce. So when you think of the people who are fighting, and you normally see an image of just men, that's not respected to what was actually seen. Who I'm talking about today is Marie-Jeanne Louverture, who actually speaks very deeply to me. She was uh, she would like to refer to herself as mixed blood. She didn't want to be called mulatto because she wanted to give homage to the fact that she had African and Ayahuasca blood. She was tall, she was statuesque, and she was a master of disguise. She could be a black woman one minute, and a young white boy the next minute, or great grandfather the other. She was brilliant, and she actually led a brigade about 1,000 women. But particularly why I'm talking about her this month is there was a battle that was pivotal in the Haitian Revolution, and it was called the Battle of Petit Perro, and it was started March 2nd. Now, in this battle, all that was happening was civilians in the area were just going to repair a fort that was in damage from previous battling going on. They weren't there in any thought that they were going to be in battle. French armies found out they were there and surrounded that fort. So about under 1,000 of our people were surrounded by numbers of 12,000 French soldiers who thought that they were just going to wipe these flies away and get out of there and whatever. That war and that invasion started March 2nd. By March 22nd, out of food, out of water, out of weapons, we took everything by nature to still continue this fight and still have our people in. But there was a letter from Marie-Jeanne's husband that was sent out to Dessalines to tell them, we need help. It's getting a little choppy out here. And so Marie-Jeanne came with the idea that Dessalines and her would go back in, and they would go in costume, go in the fort, and bring up the merriment of the men, and bring up their enthusiasm to fight, and let them know, if you want to be free men, you fight out of here, and if you want to be slaves, stay here or just fall. But if you want to fight as free men, you fight with us today, and brought up the morale. She also was able to give just a cup of, she kept the water, and she would just give herself, everyone, a spoonful of water just to keep them going. Marie-Jeanne would later leave and then come back with her women and dress up as a monarch, which is like a woman that just sells on the street. And she had a gun in one hand and a machete in the other. And she came up with a brilliant plan that the army front, the people, mind you, these are children, these are moms, these are less of these people are warriors than anything that have been fighting. And they made this brilliant attempt that they would just flush through the enemies and run as fast as they can. They were going to fight, they're going to run, but you're not going to get us. And over 300 or so of our troops came out alive. And this fight started two next battles that led into our independence. It was a coat of armor, and it was won by women, children, and men. And I think we also forget that the women that we are, the nurturer is also the warrior. The warrior cannot fight without knowing how to heal. You know what I mean? So it's a call to love, but it's also a call to understand that Dahomey woman, that Amazon woman is in you too. That strategic nature is in us too. And that will, like was said before, by any means necessary. That spoke in 1804, that spoke way before that spoke with the Black Panthers, by any means necessary. We are a brilliant brigade of women, strong, and we have birthed a brilliant brigade of intelligent men. But I would love us to remember our old intent of reminding ourselves that in proper governance, the divinity that a woman holds is just granted by universal forces, however you may look. But the power to give men the ability to govern is that balance between proper governance. And if we can work that and equate that, get women where they need to be, work side and side with our men, remember that in our love, we are also fighters. We start passions by any means necessary. I speak on Mary Jean Claude because the battle was won March 24th, which is my birthday. And I love the fact that she became a head spy for the our fighting forces. She led again a brigade of 1,000 women strong, and that's what also was a part of the end result of getting our independence on January 1st, 1802. So off to you. 1804, sorry. That's bad. But it was 1804. But that is my quick thing, because I know we're going to get to our panelists. But to my little hope, and you guys know, we are just as connected. My West African fight comes from you.
Thank you, Diana, for that really inspiring talk. Now we're gonna move now straight into discussion with our panel, and I'm gonna leave you fantastic ladies to talk among yourselves, if that's okay, and discuss, if anything, about all the things, all the women that we've spoken about today, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
We're going to do this while we're giving our viewers the opportunity to get some questions in if they have any questions.
Okay, so my tech side of things being here.
So I'm going behind the scenes, and I'm leaving you here now, Diana.
Okay.
Is that okay?
We might all have to be muted though.
Okay.
Or echoing off each other.
Okay. Oops. How did I do that? Let's bring everybody back. Who's going to go first? Anybody have any questions or any comments about today? Anything to add?
I can go first. I was just seriously so inspired by every single person's presentation. And if each of you could share a little bit more about what you're doing and maybe how we can work together, I think that, you know, we've all talked about unity to some extent. And certainly when we look at what the women before us have accomplished, no one was an island. It wasn't this whole, I'm an individual and I'm just making a name for myself. So what are you currently engaged in, and how can we work together to further advance what you're doing? Like Sayambue, I hope I'm saying your name right. Sayambua, am I saying it right? Siobua. Okay, I got it now. Siobua. First of all, I love your whole persona. You're just rocking it. You're so beautiful. All of you are so beautiful. But I played soccer as a child, and you know, growing up in Nigeria, sports is, I played sports through high school, but that's not really an area that we are encouraged to participate in, you know, and certainly look at it as anything that you do as a career. So what have been some of the challenges that you've experienced? What can we do to even, you know, bring a brighter spotlight to the work that you're doing? Because it's truly innovative.
Like you said, I am in sports and specifically football. And we deal with children who are from the ages of 4 years to 18, and this is boys and girls. And my biggest challenge has been trying to bring girls to the table. And that's because I think with the African mentality of girls don't play football, or girls are supposed to be home, and or football is a man's sport, this has been quite a challenge because globally, with the partners that we have with our organization, we have such amazing opportunities for girls. We have the option of going to university and playing football for girls. We have the options of going to pro sport for girls. But when I started the Africa Women in Sports chapter, in football chapter, it was because I needed to be in a position to explain to people exactly the opportunities that we have for girls. Because you would find that a girl would come consistently to the pitch for about 2-3 weeks and then disappear for a couple of days. So when we start calling to find out what's going on, it would be like, oh, mom didn't have a babysitter, so I had to stay behind. And I was like, this is taking away from what you're learning. This is taking away from what we are trying to instill in you. And this is because football first is an everyone. It's not just about the 11 people on the pitch. We have this entire group of people who form this 11 and nurture them to be the great sports people that they are. And again, it's not that common to have sports managers who are women in the sport. So even that comes in as a challenge because I still have to do double the work. I have to do double the learning. I have to do double the presentation for myself just to be in a position to present myself as someone who actually knows the field and what she is doing. And I always say that I'm an example. If I can do it, then any girl can do it. And I always very proud to tell the girls, like, listen, football is a lifetime career. Even if you don't play football as a player on the pitch, you have the option of being a trainer, a linesman, a manager, the owner of the club. We have all these options and they go all the way. Football doesn't end. The people who are coaching us right now are people who've been in the industry for 30, 40 years. These are people who are late in their 60s, late in their 70s, and they are not in a hurry to retire. So we have these awesome opportunities. But the only problem that we have is the African mentality of football is not for girls. And this is why I'm pushing this narrative of please understand that it is for us. We can play football. We can manage football. We know the game. We love the game. And we are ready to represent ourselves. And Africa, being such an amazing continent as we are, we have been, for the last couple of years, the platform for where all major European leagues come for players. So but I do love the fact that we train for players to be able to advance to other countries. But I also have that thing where of like, I'm not training players for Africa, and I would love to train players for Africa. I would love to be able to say, my team is in the Africa Premier League, not in the European Premier. I do appreciate European Premier League, don't get me wrong. But I love the fact that I can be able to sit at one point in my life and watch a game of where teams from South Africa, from Kenya, and Egypt, and we are coming together for a Premier League. And we are going through the trading, because we always have to trade in sports, trade of players, and that we are able to be getting all this money back into our clubs, back into building our infrastructure, because we have the land. We have the land that is capable of building some of the world-class stadiums, world-class training platforms. But why is it that we are so focused on outside and not on our own people? I want to be able to say that, you know what, this is what we did for Africa and for football, because we love football. Our crazy culture we have the most insane football culture that any other part of the world doesn't understand. Like, we go silent when a game is on, only have a conversation during halftime, and that's to discuss the game. And after that, we are back on the next half, and we are only going to discuss after the game is finished and after we've gotten the final note from the main coach. So imagine, we, especially for Kenya, when Kenyan is playing, we have the situation where people walk to the stadium from their homes. So we find that people are leaving areas like Kibera in a whole group of people. They will chant all the way to Nyayo Stadium, singing, and just, so you want to feel that there is a time where this will all be appreciated. And all of us will be in a position to say, yes, I'm playing Kenya versus South Africa. Or my team is playing against a Rwandan team today. And what, we are not doing the thing of, well, it's Europe that is coming in. No, this is a thing we did for ourselves. And that is why I'm so passionate about football for Africa by Africa.
Thank you so much for that response. And I see Diana said her daughter is in sports management. That's awesome.
If she ever needs someone to walk her through the process, I'm here.
I was just going to say that. I'm going to get your information. Just going to say that.
Hi, ladies. I'm going to go second and introduce my organization. I think I'm learning so much from all of you. Like I said earlier, it is really an honor to be sitting with giants, lionesses like you, doing amazing work in Africa and for Africans. So my work, I run a social enterprise. I'm passionate about women from previously marginalized backgrounds. So we have been working with women from like the SADC region, because we are like down there in the south. So we identify, or they refer each other, we counsel. We are offering more of a holistic approach to them, where we ascertain where they are, we identify their needs. If they are immediate and urgent, we help accordingly. But ultimately, we place them on jobs through our sister company, Elohe Cleaners, and that's mostly to try and give them a sustained livelihood. Because from the 10 years of where I've been trying to work with the ladies, I've realized that sometimes when you give people donations, you are actually crippling them. But if you empower them with a sustained livelihood, you are changing the way they think and they perceive things. So we have kind of like worked with a lot of ladies. And the idea is that once we empower the parents, once we empower the women, then that automatically helps the children. And then if then there are other children that needs help in terms of education, maybe they're in child-aided homes, we try and help actively. But sometimes we are not able to reach to many people because of sometimes limited resources. So we have had to introduce a couple of projects that are geared towards maybe just bringing in revenue into our own organization, so that in the process, we are empowering women through job creation, and also we have a few products that are maybe marketable and that we are selling. So we actively train the women, we actively absorb them in our organization to try and give them sustained livelihoods. So some of the initiatives that we are running with include like a beauty range we are working on for this year. That's our program for this year. We want to be able to have like body lotions, bath salts, and foam baths that we manufacture. We have one batch that is available already, but we need that to be fully branded and just to make noise. But in that whole system, the idea is to try and empower the women. We are creating jobs in the process, and then we are absorbing some of them in that way. And the second thing we introduced as well is the yearly planners. that we are working on. So we have women devotionals that we do, so that maybe if a woman buys it, they are able to be encouraged through different messages of hope. That's the second one, with the idea of having to, if we sell that, we are able to get more income into the organization, and that is also geared towards us having like a stable revenue coming into the organization. The next initiative we introduced is the magazine that we are working on, and in this magazine we feature different people. We feature leaders, we feature entrepreneurs, we feature social entrepreneurs, with the aim of selling, marketing, advertising space in our magazine. Then we are bringing in revenue in our organization. And some of the initiatives is just basically training, coaching, mentoring of the women and entrepreneurs. But we just trying to come up with a model that sustains all of our initiatives, so that we are sustainable ourselves. And in turn, we are able to give the women that we are empowering sustained livelihoods. And up to date, I think we've worked with over 1,000 women that we have empowered on jobs, and we still want to be able to do more. So I'm just sharing this. I'm not sure where you'd find yourself wanting to partner with us one way or the other, but the narrative is that if it's the children, we help with hygiene packs, we help with food hampers, we help with school fees. If it's the women, we train, we counsel, and then we give them jobs. So I'll just put on some of our websites there, then you can be able to see some of the things that we are doing. And if you also want us to feature you in our magazine, let me know. We can feature the amazing work that you're doing, just to give you exposure. We are still building on subscriptions. We are still building on a lot of things. We are launching our awards in August to actually try and enhance some of the work that African people are doing. So they are mostly African, Pan-African awards that we are doing. Yeah, so please let me know if there's any way we can collaborate or support each.
That's a great segue into the question that was popped up, and it was being brought up several times on the how do we get the collaboration and to happen? How do we address a collaboration to happen, right? So you did just put out several ways, and as we were discussing, let's with our other ladies, how do you feel about our abilities to get amongst our let me say exactly what he has. It goes, how are you going to be able to collaborate amongst yourselves in ways that address matter? I think that's matters, conflict of interest. I'm not sure if that says, I think that was supposed to say matters, but conflict of interest. So I'm just showing that because he put that up a couple of times, and it's a great question. How can we collaborate? How do you see that working?
Yeah, I will go third. First of all, I would like to, we have an order so far. So I would like to commend all of the wonderful women that were part of this panel. I see so much synergies with our work, even though they're in different areas. The underlying element is empowering women and girls. How do we do this in a sustainable, holistic fashion? And my area, so I'm doing a doctorate, an international doctorate in Europe, and my area is focused on research. And even though it is academic centric, I'm working on how to bridge academia with practical solutions. So I'm focusing on generating data, and data as a means of proactive development. How do we get data on, let's say, I am not going to try to pronounce your name just in case I don't say it correctly. Siyom, can you please? And Precious, what Precious I can say, and the wonderful lady that spoke after me as well. Eberici, I'm not going to try to pronounce your names, but even though we are working in different areas, how are we going to use that data on the ground and get more girls involved in these areas? How are we going to do that in a meaningful way? And to refer to what Diana said, how are we going to get collaborations? So I'm focusing on data. So I think that I could provide data. Let's say you're looking at a particular region and you're trying to work with women in, let's say, to get more women in a particular niche area. How many women are in this area and what needs to be done to get them in? So I can offer data provision services, and I do like Precious statement with the magazine and the yeah, I would definitely like to collaborate. And also, so I'm going to make a few observations. I loved Aya's, she's not in with us right now. I loved her women. I loved, one second. I loved how she was able to segue into her women. So, one second, I'm having. Oh, right. Hello? Hello? Can you? Ah, perfect. I loved how she was able to go into the women and expanding on that definition. And I also love the story of Wangari. I think she's an amazing Shero, and I was not aware of such. She's so brave, and how you were able to bring that story alive. So I think the role of storytelling could be a very important collaboration tool that we can use. So we can focus on specific areas, on specific women in key areas, and we could actually have a segment where we have a women's a women's story of the month, where we have maybe an animation that we focus on. Okay, this woman did this and this, and then we can actually draw parallels of other women within our respective societies and what they're doing, and draw and see, okay, what are the similarities and what are the differences. And even though you do talk about African integration, I'm not from the continent. I am from the Caribbean. So I think we must also make those strategic international linkages, not only limiting it to our jurisdictions, but recognizing that there are potentials and there are benefits to our unity across the world, not just within a particular area.
Can I just jump on you saying that, just
Okay.
because I agree so much with that. The whole, for example, me even sitting here is being part of the Haitian American Collaborative. We've gotten in contact with, Daniel in the United States of Africa. The information I was giving from you to you was actually from my mentor, who's Baina Bello, who wrote the book, who's actually one of my heroes as a woman who's living right now. The stories of our Sheroes connect us directly to how we're from West Africa, that the Dahomey women particularly. So the one of the missions of the collaborative in its entirety is to connect those bridges, right? Even talking to all of you and being able to look at you right now in this virtual setting and world is that start of that collaborative, right? You know what I mean? So I think even these presentations this month, that a platform being taken this far is an amazing way, because I'm sure I maybe before COVID, I don't know, I would have probably never seen all of you, but if we take the steps, okay, you're strong at like media, let's get you here, let's get it pushing here. You're strong with I'm a nutrition person, whatever, and then I personally believe connecting to our quiet generation and bringing them to our youth and being that liaison in the middle for whatever market we are looking into, economics, education. And I even think the way we educate should be a little bit more critiqued as well. And I think women are, have the minds to look at that. We used to educate our children There was 4 things, but I always remember 3. But I know it was geometry first, astrology, and music. So, and it was like geometry, because if you know geometry, there's no A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You can't write, right? If you music is because we're a rhythmic people. We'll remember stuff. We remember words. We remember to drums, music. We remember things to that. And there's no war, not one, without knowing the night sky, right? So I would teach that to my children before I even said A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And just coming back to, or, you know, but I think that the collaborative and this type of collaboration, women of this type of mindset, and I really think our ancestors are like sitting right in front of us right now. Like the past is like here again and saying, okay, let's meet. We had some work to do. We did some things. Let's meet again. That's all.
Okay. As regards collaboration, there's one thing I strongly believe, and it's true, is that no discipline, no interest is isolated from every other. At one point or the other, you may find yourself, we may find ourselves in need of the area or the strength of another sister, and getting to know ourselves through this platform, it's easier to connect, it's easier to reach out, it's easier to get help in our areas of weakness, and having someone who has strength, in our areas of weakness coming to play a role. It covers it all and bring a perfect picture.
I wanted to touch on something that I strongly believe, and I believe in the sharing of information. I believe the only way we learn is because I received information and I give you information. And I find that this is something that Wangari was not afraid to do. I'm going to go out and I'm going to talk to you. So I find that I am always giving out information that I know. And if I don't know, I'll just give you, like, just give me a minute or two, let me research on it, and I'll be able to give you information. Why? Because we only learn through other people. And there is always that thing of where we always want to hold on to and we become the only people. But that doesn't work for all of us. That doesn't work for our people. How are we going to be able to learn if we hold on to information? So I don't like holding on to information. So if anybody has a question when it comes to football, what do you guys want to do? Let me know. I am always ready to answer. I am always online answering questions. I'm always on LinkedIn answering questions, because I feel the more we share information, the more people are aware of what we are doing and the work that we are doing. And if anybody has just a little slight fear, you never know who you're gonna meet. And that's the best part about life. Every new person is someone who I would say the ancestors brought to your way. They kind of just slid into like where your path is right now. Is I think you need this person, and that person will be able to teach you something that you did not learn before. And you'll find that there's always someone who wants to learn what you know, and you'll be like, wait, I learned that last week, so let me give you this information. So when it comes to conflict of interest, I don't think we do have any, because it's basically sharing our experiences and opening our platforms to everyone to be able to not only learn, but grab something and be able to share it with someone else. Yeah.
Have you ever heard that saying that says, if you teach a woman, you teach a nation?
Yes.
That's what you sound like to me right now. Like, you sound like when you teach a woman, you teach a nation.
I don't know. I just wanted to also add in and say, is it possible for us to maybe just share in our profiles, like of what we do? Then we can be able to see if there's any collaborations, if maybe we can have maybe like a once a month session to just like accountability partners to say, how are you? How are things? Maybe just being intentional in building relationships, not just because maybe you want something, but just maybe to understand who Diana really is, what makes her happy, what are things that she's doing. Maybe in a year's time, she would want to scale up to South Africa or Zimbabwe, but then we'll be having a relationship. So I feel like sometimes we jump into things before we understand. Maybe we can just have a session where we can say, let's check in, or we share our profiles for work that we are doing. Then once a month, we can just, I know we have a WhatsApp group, but sometimes WhatsApp groups can be very hectic. I must confess, I'm not an avid WhatsApp person, so I might miss some stuff. But if it's on email, yeah, I confess I'm not good at WhatsApp, but I would love to collaborate with each one of you. Thank you.
Well, any of the ladies that didn't get the time to just express, you know, what they do and where they are, I know we introduced you by our great host today, but do you want to have the time to express yourselves with your beautiful name that I'm not going to mess up? But you want to go?
Okay. Presently, I'm conducting a research entitled Wife Inheritance in the Context of Igbo Culture. The research is to look at the wife inheritance system, to understand the system and know its impact in the society. And the system is a kind that reduces the wives and the women to nothing more than a property owned by our husband and kinsmen, that when the husband passes on, the next brother picks her up like, oh, you become my property, you are property, you go nowhere. And so far in my research, if I would weigh the negative the impact vis-a-vis the positive impact, I'd say the negative impact is more. It's aside the dehumanizing the women, it has led to several strifes, conflicts, disunity, even among the small Igbo group, about even among the small Igbo group. And the painful thing about this is, many want to argue that, oh, it's something of the past, but the truth is it's still being practiced, and many people are suffering, many women are suffering from it, many children are suffering from it, and even the society is also suffering from it. That's what I'm up to, that's what I'm doing at the moment.
That's powerful. That's a very powerful, like, especially being from, you know, America. You know, I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but that's not a normal story to hear. So it's like, that's powerful, because I would have like, no, that's powerful to hear. So, and would love to know how we can be of more help to that. I'm just trying to see. Oh, I don't want to miss. Who did we miss? Who did we not miss? Nikki, Nikki, did you talk? Did we talk? Did you get to talk again about introduce yourself? Or in this collaborative method? I know we introduced you already, we know you, but I just forgot, were you able to speak yet? If not, then we can go to Aya.
Yes, maybe we could go to Aya. I mentioned earlier that I am a doctoral student.
Right.
And so maybe
Right.
Aya would
Okay, Madai.
introduce herself. Okay, thank you.
Hello, everyone. I just told a paying client I'll have to reschedule with you.
We love you too.
Listen, I am so fired up by all your presentations, and also Edwina, who isn't with us. She, I think, was the second presenter. I'm an attorney by training. I was born in the United States, but I grew up in Nigeria, and then I came back to the United States at 17, and I've been here since then, and I'm 50 now, so I've, I'm raising my children here. And initially I thought my focus was going to be civil rights and being able to go back to Nigeria and work in that capacity. But shortly after I got into law school here, my father was arrested in Nigeria. He's a professor. He's now retired, although he's still working. But anyway, he's a professor and he was also a paramount chief, and he was being accused of treason. This was during that same time that Ken Saro-Wiwa was murdered, assassinated. We come from an area in Nigeria that's oil rich, and there are just always these issues with corrupt officials and other international forces at play. And so my father was extremely concerned about me coming back home because he said, you don't know how to shut up your mouth and they will kill you. And so, that was a window of time for me to have gone back and to attend law school in Nigeria and, be able to find my way. And when that window closed, I got married, I had children here. And so I pretty much just was like, okay, well, then I'll do my work here. And that's what I did all the way through college, fighting for rights for students of color, particularly African students. When I first got to Ohio State University, actually, they wouldn't, even though I passed all their tests with flying colors, they said, we can't admit you because we don't know what trigonometry in Nigeria means. If you got an A or whatever, we don't know what that means. I'm like, is science not science? Physics not physics all over the world? Like, we need to see your textbooks. We need to see the syllabus to understand if, and I'm like, but I passed your own test. But anyway, that just kind of got me going on understanding just how deeply entrenched white supremacy is and how it impacts all of us as people of color and as Africans in particular all over the world. And so in terms of the work that I do now, it's multifaceted. I still provide legal assistance to a lot of different individuals and organizations. I'm also a founder of an organization called Black Ladies Advancing Qualitative and Quantitative Change. And what we're doing is focusing on a particular area right now in terms of doing research, understanding the facts of what's impacting our communities, coming up with solutions, and then pressuring politically to bring about change in our community. And a lot of it is really educating our community first, because we are so prone to the same miseducation that everybody else is prone to. We're all part and parcel of this Western education system, which is designed to maintain their white supremacy and designed to ensure that we feel less than, and that we're constantly directing our attention towards proving our humanity to them, as opposed to just taking up our own agency and doing for ourselves. So that's one organization that I'm working with right now. And our goal is to really create a blueprint for how to bring about change grassroots level that then maybe can be replicated in other places. In addition to that, I run a mentoring program for girls. It's called Intelligent and Talented Girls. We target girls from ages 10 through 18. And the goal is to just equip them with leadership skills, to provide a safe place where they can speak to whatever their challenges are. Through this, we've been able to provide scholarships, but we've also found out that there are a lot of girls suffering in silence, dealing with sexual abuse, and trying to find resources to assist them. And then we're realizing, obviously, assist their mothers in particular, and sometimes their fathers as well, just giving them better tools with which to communicate with and work with their young girls. And then an initiative that I started or was inspired to take on after my last trip to Nigeria, which was right before the pandemic. Very concerned about how our culture is dying, so as our elders are dying, we're losing so much of who we are. And I know this sounds a little weird, and this is a long story, long response, but my grandfather, who I never met, reached out to me through the spiritual world. However, I don't know what your beliefs are, and basically said, I need you to go home. And I'm like, go home, do what, whatever. And through all of that, what he was saying is that there needs to be a more concerted effort to preserve our culture. And I remembered as a child stories that we used to tell under the moonlight, but I couldn't remember some of the specifics of some of the stories anymore. And so I'll wrap up really quickly. And so I went back home to try to find people who could tell those stories so I could record, document the stories. And in my hometown, found out that so many people, so many of our cultural traditions, because of the Christian faith, had been destroyed. Like they're not, we just don't practice them anymore. And so people are like, oh, we don't tell those stories anymore because the church said if you tell the stories, blah, blah, blah. And so it was a Herculean effort to find people who could remember the stories. They're like, oh, so-and-so, but she just died. So-and-so, but he just died. So anyway, what I've started to do is to pay college students. So Eberichi, you may be able to help me with this, to go back into their communities and to just interview elders, just whatever their stories are. We do have a framework, but just get their stories and let's start compiling this information. And then final thing is I'm also in the process of establishing a library in Opobo town. That's where my family is from. I spent about 2 weeks there this last visit and realized that there were no books for the kids. We had schools had no books, no library in the entire town. And so I've been able to secure a building with a couple of rooms. And for my birthday this year, I turned 50. That was what I asked for as gifts. I said, donate money to me so that I can purchase books and we can establish this library and pay a librarian. And so prayerfully with COVID, I can go back home later this summer and actually set it all up. And so that's what I'm working on.
I need you in my life. I do.
Thank you.
First of all, too, our hosts, I don't want you to act like you guys don't do amazing stuff, too. You're part of this collaborative, you're part of these twindomness. Don't just sit here like you don't do anything.
Everyone on this panel is just amazing and powerful. And imagine if we could all just work together and collaborate and do even greater things than just meet up on a StreamYard talk. We will change the continent. We can change the continent, and I believe we are changing the continent, and we're changing the world. We have that capacity, and it's coming through. It's really coming through, and I'm so happy. I'm so happy. You can tell I'm winding down because my voice is going, but
the one
I'm
thing
so happy and inspired.
The one thing I do want to point what IS said, and I really want like that key point, because this is actually how I mute. This is actually how I met Paina Bello. But hearing stories from my own mother about when they would sit down and around the fire in their villages, and the elders would talk about stories. And then again, my father being a lawyer in Haiti and my mother's teaching, and they come over and they're like, oh, well, you have to go back to school. And my father was like, no, you know what I mean? But those stories is actually what connected me now with like people like Baina Ezelidanto, Professor James Smalls, Renoko Rashidi, just to get these conversations from the silent generation back to like millennials, Generation Y, and younger. Like I think one of the key things that we need, even in that unity, is that conversation back from our elders to our youth. You know what I mean? Because even in what we're talking, everything that the women, I even particularly like Mary Jean, because I can literally see the me in her. You know what I mean? And those stories around the fire, you see the you in those stories. It's your great grandma talking about grandpa when he was like crazy or something, you know? So that's just one thing I think that besides the many of array, but one thing that is like key, even for me, get the youth back to that silent generation before we lose a library of information. My dad just passed, and I guess I get to be called the daughter of an activist. He did a lot, but he was born in 1940, and I just realized, I found out, you know, that's the year Marcus Garvey's dad died. Crazy enough, we met the son, but can you just imagine the life or the mentality of the person who was 80 85, 90. And even the way they thought of the fight looked different. You know what I mean? Reconnecting to that to our youth, I think, will be a big part of them understanding who they are. And like ours in Haiti, it was either liberty or death. And you did that because you know who you were. You know, I know my daughter, I know I'm already here on repeat because my daughter, you know what I mean? Like, she's me on repeat. I'm here already again. So that would give me the tenacity to jump into a cannon. I know I'm going to go, but this cannon's not going to work for you to kill nobody else, though. You know what I mean? That was a tenacity because we knew who we were. Those conversations happened. Our babies knew them stories as they were sucking on whatever pacifier breast. I don't know, but I think it would be amazing for our community to get back to as well. So, and especially as women. And I also think, and we've said this before, I think it's beautiful that how much this month and that you hold on to a language, having a one unified language, I think is like so important. And I'm glad that you, through this month, that's been reiterated. And being in America, I think that needs to be pushed so badly here too. I think that makes so much sense. If we could teach that like tomorrow, I'm with it.
And just to build on what you said, and probably looking forward, so even though I do focus on parliamentary representation, I do have an initiative that focuses on gender-based violence and how to address gender-based violence within our societies. I think that COVID has really highlighted or even exacerbated in certain societies violence against women. So we had these issues prior to COVID, and now it's getting worse. And I believe that with our collaborations and solutions moving forward, they must have a meaningful impact on the current issues that we face. So even though, yes, we are keeping our traditions and culture alive, we also have to understand that we are living in a dynamic society with issues that emerge within certain social and cultural constructs. So even though in the Caribbean we do have violence against women, it's not the same as in Kenya or in Nigeria, but there's still certain underlying elements that are the same. And I would love to discuss with you all a future iteration on how we could collaborate to address domestic violence within our societies, if you're willing. Thank you.
I would like to add on what Nikita has said, because Kenya experienced a very interesting, I would say, great win today in the fight against gender-based violence, and that this was a fight that started on Wednesday when three gentlemen on our media stations decided to make light of a case where a girl was thrown off the 12th floor. And it was because she said no to sexual advances. And so they thought this was a great time to do a punchline, and practically the entire Kenyan lady community, we were not having it. And so between Wednesday and yesterday, all we did was send emails. We were calling out the Communications Authority of Kenya, and collectively as a voice, like with Kenyan women came to one platform and said, you know what, we are coming for this. And by last night, they had been fired. By this morning, the show was cancelled for 6 months, and the station was fined 1 million. And and this had to be something that we had to do, because in Kenya it's reached a point of where we are looking at 1 in every 5 women is being harassed every day. And so when it came to that point of where we were like, you know what, enough is enough. We have been pushed to the brink of fear, that I actually fear leaving my house. And when we have people who keep making light of the situations we are experiencing, we will never change the narrative. When a woman is being raped and the first question you're asking is, what was she wearing? Was she drinking? Was she walking this way? And you realize, no, a rapist will be a rapist. An abuser is an abuser. And no matter, I can do everything right, but I can still end up in a position of where I meet the wrong person and they take advantage. And so I get the voice of how strong we need to come out against gender-based violence, and how as women we need to be able to say we are going to fight this head on. And this is not a fight between men versus women, or no, this is a fight of where we need our men to come on board and call out their friends on their behavior, because that is the only way we are going to change. Until they too understand that it takes, when a friend sits next to them and says, hey, let me show you a photo that she sent, and they go like, no, that's a privacy issue for her, and so we are not going to partake in that. Then that way they are going to change. So this communication for gender-based violence needs to come out strong, not only for women, but we also need to sensitize our men to be able to understand that when I'm walking on the street and I see 3 men in front of me, I go to a straight up panic mode. I am not sure whether I need to cross the road or I need to stop or start making a fake phone call or something. So I get it. And I would be very happy to hop on board to be able to do our part for the Kenyan side, to be able to continue with this campaign.
You know, with that being said too, it's just why I talk about going back as well, especially in our community and our people. We've had victims. I've been a victim, but there was a time when our women were gods, in a sense, when I feel like it was our people were taught into this type of mannerisms. It wasn't started that way. You know what I mean? There was a time when a group of men were protective, like I shouldn't be scared of a group of men walking towards me. And if I don't hear those stories, I only know of threat when a group of men that look just like me walk. But that wasn't always the case. You know what I mean? So that's it's part of understanding where it changed, the root, the cause and effect in a sense, without being like spraying a lemon on it. It's just kind of like, but remember when it was this before? You thought, like, you remember when to be a king, you had to go to a queen to get that? Like, you remember when you walked and understood that queen is the strongest piece on your chessboard? Like, do you remember when you're the most solidary, like we hold our children, but the most solid thing you held was us? Like, that's kind of what I mean by those type of stories, because then we go into a trade where we were enslaved, we were raped, our men, our women, our children were raped, you know what I mean, taken out, this and that. So it's like this Stockholm syndrome and this like DNA trauma that, like, if you've been abused, you're more than likely to abuse somebody else, right? So like, but an abusee or abuser, it's like you don't ever remember the time before the abuse. Like, let me bring you back. Like, we didn't start this way. You know what I mean? The safest place I should feel like is with you. You know, I'm completely with you guys, but it's just like, I want you to remember, like, there was a hiccup in our story. You know what I mean? We were dynamic there's a hiccup, but that dynamic nature is still there. Just let's get some water and get that hiccup out the way, you know? That's all.
Yeah, I know we've run out of time, but I would love to work with you as well, Nikita, because some of the women we are working with, they are tremendously abused. And South Africa has a high rate of women abuse as well. So I really would love to learn and see how we can be more relevant, because sometimes if we don't change the mindset, we are failing to be relevant to the women that we want to empower. So would really love to collaborate as well. Thank you.
Just one note really on this issue of women being abused. What grieves my heart is the extent to which we bought into the same narrative that the men have, and we are agents of our own abuse. So for instance, when I look at children being abused and those men who are abusing them being protected by other women, being, the girls being shamed after they've been victimized by other women. Society further traumatizing women after they've been victimized. It's crazy, so it's like we have to educate our men. But like Diana was saying, this hiccup, it's really affected all of us, but we also have to educate ourselves. And I was just saying to my sons, because we were having this conversation, and one of my sons said, but women also need to be, it was about, if you're in the US, it was after the Grammys with Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B doing their WAP song. And so they were saying, but this isn't a great message because it'll lead to women being abused. Now, I was sexually abused as a child. And I said, what did I wear as a 5-year-old? What does the 89-year-old woman who gets raped, what did she do to bring that on? What did the infant little girl do? So this is not about women expressing their sexuality or what we wore or how we spoke or any of that. We need to see this as the power struggle, that it is. And so really re-educating women too, because so many times we are the ones protecting men who are perpetuating these abuses on women.
I also want to hear this because of one comment I saw. Just like you said, women can speak to women in a way, but I would love to see men speak to men in a way of how they see this, how they feel about it, how they check each other, how do they feel it when it happened to their boys or their mother or their daughter. You know what I mean? Because again, as a man, there's some things I cannot express. I am not a man. I can't see it in their manner, right? So I would love to hear that. And again, more than likely, it's always a power struggle situation, and you were abused yourself some way, right? So I can definitely have a conversation, but I would love to hear how men address that because, again, I shouldn't be afraid of you. So let's have this conversation. Do you guys discuss this? How do you see this? Why would you think that it would be a reason of what I'm wearing that is okay enough for you to be that? Like, where is that coming from? Because I'm not going to see it the way you are. I do not have the same genitalia. I just, you know what I mean? So I would love to hear that because especially in comments, or saying certain things, but let's be a part. Let's not just throw hacks and this and that. This is a problem. Be a part of the conversation and saying, okay, well, if you think that women are expressing it in this way, as a man, how do you feel about this? And how do you express it with men? Because I'm not a man. I can't do that. I can just express to you how it's affected me, how it's made me overprotective as a mother, you know what I mean? And how long it took me to bear that it wasn't my fault type of situation. You know what I mean? So just wondering that because I don't want to bring it up, but it was a comment on like, oh, this is why women, whatever, it doesn't matter. I don't even care. But as a man, then tell us as a man where it can be impactful to speak as to you. You know what I mean? I would love to hear that type of conversation too.
And maybe since we're on the part of collaborations, I think that this discussion can go on forever and ever. But just having that, maybe we can also set up conferences where we have male speakers. Both, well, it could be a bit controversial if we have the victimizers, but having men at the table talking and giving their experiences and talking to others. So we can definitely set up more conferences focus on particular areas that we're interested in the future, and yeah, that will be very interesting.
I think that definitely would be, and you guys are like all amazing, like and so informative. And I don't even know if you guys wanted more questions or give a last like shout out to how we can reach everybody. I know it's in the comments. I can pull them back up and go through.
I think
But I can go like all day with you ladies. Like,
Sure,
you're just so
sure.
informative and beautiful and just great end to a birthday weekend. I'm sorry to plug that out, but it's just like I feel like this has been the best weekend.
The good thing is that we have all your details, so we can share your details with each other.
Yeah.
So it's good. We can do that. Definitely, we can arrange that. No problem. We can get everybody connected to each other now that we've had this wonderful discussion today. And it's true. We need to do another show where we can get the men to come in and talk about these things, because we need to hear what their take is and how they feel about how we feel about things, and vice versa. And it's very, very important, because we need to be agreeing. We need to be agreeing so that we can go forward. Because if they're always going to see it their way and we're always going to see it our way, nothing's going to change. They need to be able to understand where we're coming from and why we feel the way we do. So it's important. It really is important. And it's been great. It's been a wonderful day. It's been a powerful day, very powerful day, because we've reinforced just how great we are. And we've reinforced how much more we can do. And especially when we work together instead of working against each other. And that's the main thing that's come out of today. Our ancestors did it, and so can we. So can we, because they live in us. So we can go forwards with that power, and with everything that they had, we still have it. It's still in us. So I'm going to wrap up today, and I'm going to thank each and every one of our speakers that spoke today. And I'm going to go through your names one by one. We had Nikita Reese. We had Edwina Jenny Taylor Flatten, who came and went. Powerful woman because of her bereavement. She had to leave us. We had Mazai Ebrechi. Come on.
Ebrechi Nweze.
Ebrechi Nweze. Why have I got it the other way around? Okay. Ebrechi Nweze. Thank you. Okay. Culinary entrepreneur. When we get together, we're gonna have to share some cake. We're gonna have to share some cake. Our keynote speaker today, Fubara Nelly, honoring the call. Powerful spokesperson today. We had Sayombua speaking, sports manager by profession. We've had Precious Nayarambi, social entrepreneur, coach, speaker, you name it. Vessels of virtue, everything. Powerful speakers today. It's been wonderful. And we also had Diana Revelou, who stepped in and gave us a powerful talk about, and there was one particular person you mentioned who said she could change herself. One day she'd be a boy, next day she'd be a girl, next day I'd be really interested to hear about that.
She was known to be a spy, and that's what she did. And she led a brigade of women, and she could change her. And you could even go into spirituality with that, or how they talk about shape shifting and things, which it is. But it's just the ability to what's it called?
Disguise yourself.
Thank you. Like the method of disguise. Like she's one of my favorites. Like I love
I'd like
her.
to read about her.
Most definitely. I'll plug you into this book right here. Written by,
what's that book? What is it?
So it's called The Sheroes of the Haitian Revolution. It was written by Baina Bello, which is my mentor, and she's a Haitian historian, and she's in Haiti right now. We do weekly sessions. We just did one on Thursday, but every Thursday we do a conversational piece by Zoom with her. And this is one of the books she just released, but I'm just trying to see if I could show her. That's Baina right there.
Okay.
Yeah. But amazing book. Amazing book.
Where can we get copies? How can we get copies?
Amazon. And it's quick read, easy read, but this is the picture of Marie-Jeanne.
Give us the title again for everyone listening and watching.
I love her. And then it's the Sheroes of the Haitian Revolution.
Sheroes of the Haitian Revolution.
And she calls it our story. When I know somebody was saying her story, this and that, and throughout the text, it's called our story. So I just like that you guys were talking about that, because I was like, oh, that's cute.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, she is. Yeah, throughout, it's, if you get the book throughout, it's not his. It says our story about, and you learn the correlations and it's cool. It's cool. It's a great read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. It's been a wonderful day. I'd just
great.
like to thank everybody once more, and also to our sponsors, Asachi Real Estate and Tunacheki TV YouTube channel, and Council for Ethiopian Diaspora Action, CEDA, who've been covering our live streams all throughout African History Month. It's been absolutely wonderful. And to my sister, Debbie Marquis, who's also co-hosted today. It's been a great day. Thank you so much, sis. I love this. I love doing this. So maybe it's going to be something that we do more often. Daniel will love that, I'm sure.
Tunacheki was my word for this month.
Yes. Your new word for this month.
My new word for this month was Tunacheki. Guys, have a good one.
Maybe if I could suggest something, just to end, can we all say a word that we would love to resonate with the audience? It could be any word or phrase or quote that we would love to leave. I'm sorry if I put you on the spot. Just
mine is easy because it walks with me all the time. Just you see my last name, just put a Tion, just drop the S, put a Tion, and then pay attention that love is there backwards. That's my whole spirit. That's how I'm coming from. That's what I do. There you go. Mine is easy. It comes through. I get to walk with it.
Revolution. A walking revolution.
In that order. Could be a little chaotic. Sorry.
Okay. Who's going to go next? Shall we go across? Okay. Okay.
For mine, because I did. For mine, because I did the amazing Wangari. There's always one quote that I will forever cherish, and she said, "When you know who you are free." And that
absolutely.
Once you know who you are free, and that is usually the quote that I go with.
Yep, and we should all be inspired to find out exactly who we are. Definitely.
Okay. Next.
Yes.
What I want to leave is this is what my mom. You always tell me this. She tells me whenever you fail or whenever life throws a blow at you, or whenever life cheats you, you shouldn't cheat yourself. If it throws a blow at you, it's fine to be down, it's fine to cry, but ensure you pick yourself up and fight again. You definitely get to your dream.
That's right. Nikita? Since you put us on the spot.
Yeah, I wanted to go last, but of course.
Oh, okay then. Okay. Aya. Unmute Aya.
I'm feeling this deeply in my spirit, and just hearing all of you that we need to honor what's on the inside of us. Honor that calling, honor that power, honor that thing that keeps us up late at night, that thing that, stirs up our passion. Honor.
For me, I think it would be let love lead us always. Human beings are capable of love. When we love, we are able to do so much, and that should be our core. I think that'll be my my parting words.
That was exactly what I was going to say. I was going to say, let love reign. It's an old saying, but I resonate with you so much, Precious. Let love reign.
Yeah.
You can't spell revolution without love. I just want y'all to know that. Remember, that love is backwards. You can't spell revolution without love.
I
So
noticed that the revolution has
Debbie?
love.
I tell you, I'm tagged with it. Right, there's no revolution without love.
Okay. All right, Debbie, your
Okay,
turn.
first of all, thank you, ladies, for today. I think my parting word comes from today. It was already used, and that word is Ubuntu. And I take from it that I am because we are, and no one gets left behind. And that's what I take from today. So thank you all.
Okay, Nikita.
And I would love to end with Maya Angelou's poem that resonates with me and in keeping with our future collaborations, and that is we raise. And I believe that once we continue to work together, as Debbie said, and having the love that Precious and Diana built on under a revolutionary spirit, that we can change things and everything. Once we combine that, we will continue to rise. And I do thank you. This was lovely. Thank you.
You're welcome. And on that note, I shall say, I'll bid you
Fair
all a
deal,
good
love.
night or good evening.
Fair deal.
And until the next time, I'm going to close us out with our wonderful African History Month video, because I love that. I love it. It's just so great. I love watching it. And to everyone who's tuned in, thank you so much for being with us today. It's been wonderful to have you. And we hope to see you again next time. Our next African History Month conference is going to be our grand finale on Wednesday, the 31st of March. It's going to be something great. So stay tuned and we'll send you all the details. Okay, so here we go. Good night, everybody, and take care.